Chapter 1362. Everyone's curiosity was piqued by Lung Hanja's question. Yun Jian felt everyone's gaze on her, but she wasn't afraid of being stared at all. Instead, she welcomed everyone's attention. Her red lips curled up slightly. Finally, under everyone's expectant gazes, she said, "What does it matter if it's true or not? There are believers and there are none who don't. I have nothing to say." With that, Yun Jian turned around and called out to Mu Ying and Lin Wan. Then she led the way. "Hey Yun Jian, wait for us." Seeing that Yun Jian and the other two were about to leave, the people around them scrambled to catch up. Even the students from Wulin Military Academy chased after them out of fear. Who would care about their pride now? Was their pride more important than their lives? Following Yun Jian could at least guarantee their own lives. Wu Bukue, Su Wei, Ma Xiaoyao, and the other students from Wulin Military Academy all followed Yun Jian's footsteps. Wherever Yun Jian went, the students followed. Yun Jian didn't intend to shake them off on purpose. From morning to afternoon and then to evening. The evening on the uninhabited island was chilly. There was no one around, and the roars of wild beasts could be heard from time to time. A group of students sat together in a circle, looking a little scared. The firewood is here. It's all here. Hearing Yun Jian's words, Lung Hanja organized a few boys to carry the firewood. It was now piled up in a pile. Yun Jian glanced at it, then said to Lung Hanja, "Use it sparingly. The fire will burn until the sun rises in the morning. Also, arrange for 2 people to keep watch at night." After saying that, she glanced at the students who were setting up the tents around her. She walked to the side of a big tree, stepped on the ground and leaped lightly. She had already used her fastest speed to leap up the tree, and then lay down on a thick branch. "Yun Jian, what are you doing?" When Peeling saw this scene, she opened her mouth and asked Yun Jian in surprise. At the same time, there was a trace of surprise in her eyes. "Sleep," Yun Jian said and closed her eyes. "Sleeping in a tree? Damn, does she think she's filming a martial arts movie?" Lin Shuya couldn't help but ridicule her flamboyant personality. Just as Lin Shuya said this, she was pulled by Wen Peeling. "Shuya, don't be like this. Yun Jian saved us twice. She is our benefactor." Wen Peeling comforted Lin Shuya's shoulder. Lin Shuya replied indignantly, "Senior Lingling, you're just so kind." Yun Jian didn't listen to a single word of what was being said. She closed her eyes and rested. For the next 3 days they settled down here. During the day the group of boys would go to the beach to fish. Then they would collect firewood and light the firewood at night. This was to prevent the surrounding beasts from approaching without anyone noticing. On the 4th day the group of people picked fresh mushrooms. When they were about to cook and eat them, they were stopped by Yun Jian and lectured. Early in the morning of the 5th day, Yun Jian was woken up by a scream. She opened her eyes and jumped down the tree. She saw Wen Peeling and a few girls shouting in horror. The group of people around them revealed a panicked expression. "She is gone? She is gone. How could a person disappear all of a sudden?" Someone asked with a pale face. "I remember now. Yesterday evening she walked towards the beach alone. I saw her and asked her what she was doing, but she ignored me. Then I remember that I went to sleep first." A girl's voice trembled slightly as she spoke. In such a gloomy forest, someone in the group suddenly disappeared. This was an indescribably terrifying event. "What do we do? What do we do?" A girl was so scared that she couldn't speak. Chapter 1363. How did this happen? Why didn't I keep a close eye on her yesterday? Why didn't I notice that there was no one in her tent before I went to bed? Wen Peeling's body trembled as she was comforted by a group of girls. She looked like she had suffered quite a shock. "It's okay, Shuya will be fine." Xiang Qishi was scared half to death as well, but she stubbornly held on to her fear. Yun Jian jumped down from the tree and walked over. "Did you find her?" At this time the boys who ran to the beach had returned. Wen Peeling quickly ran over and held Lung Hanja's hand. Lung Hanja shook his head. He pushed Wen Peeling's hand away and walked over to Yun Jian and Mu Ying. "Yun Jian, in this situation should we leave or?" Lung Hanja asked for Yun Jian's opinion. "Stay," Yun Jian said without thinking. "Damn, my cousin is missing. Are you even human? You're happy that my cousin is missing, aren't you? You hate my cousin for what she did to you before, don't you?" When Han Ming heard Yun Jian's words, if the people around him didn't hold him back, he would have charged at Yun Jian like he had epilepsy. "You can leave if you want, if you can." Yun Jian stood where she was with her eyes downcast as she spoke nonchalantly, baffling everyone around her. "What do you mean?" Han Ming stared at Yun Jian for 2 seconds and said uneasily. There's a location blocker installed all around us. The emergency devices we have on hand have all lost their effectiveness. A girl with a rather enchanting figure walked over from the side. Looking closely, it was Muing. Muing held 3 or 4 things that looked like routers in her hands. However, they weren't routers. I only found 4 of them. The entire island is installed with these. The instructors won't be able to receive our emergency devices. Muing handed the 4 location jammers to Yun Jian and explained to everyone. Didn't you find these location jammers? A few of the students did not believe him. They quickly pressed the emergency button on their body several times. However, after waiting for 10 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, there was no sound at all. The instructors wouldn't even send a helicopter to rescue them. How did this happen? Only then did the students realize the severity of the situation. They were all scared out of their wits. Unless you find all the location jammers within 100 meters of us, your emergency devices won't work. Yun Jian looked at all the location jammers that Muing handed to her. Then she stood up straight and said. As she spoke, Yun Jian threw all the location jammers on the ground. These location jammers only have an effective range of 100 meters. However, if you want to find them, you have to search through all the soil, trees or leaves within 100 meters, Yun Jian said. I found 4 within 100 meters just now. There should be more, Muing said. If you want to go out and find Lin Shuya, look for the location jammers. Yun Jian pointed at the location jammers on the ground. On the 5th day, a group of people gathered together to look for location jammers. On the 6th day they had found more than 10 location jammers. Yun Jian took Lin Wan's emergency device and looked at it. She suddenly stood up and said, there's another location jammer within 100 meters. As long as we find that location jammer, the emergency device can be used within 100 meters. This was definitely a man-made incident. Because it wasn't just within 100 meters. Every corner of the island was installed with location jammers. Someone did it on purpose. Then what are we waiting for? Let's go look for it. When Peeling's hands tightened and her feet stopped moving, she said excitedly, Yes. We have to contact the instructor quickly. Lin Shuya's travel bag is still with us. If something happens to her, Xiang Chishi said fearfully. Bah, what happened? My cousin wouldn't? Han Ming was halfway through his sentence. Found it. It's here. At this moment, someone stood in the distance and shouted to everyone. The student found the last location jammer. He had just recovered from the excitement of being afraid but about to be redeemed. He dug out the last location jammer from the soil. However, he took a big step back and suddenly stepped on something fleshy in the grass. The student stood still and looked over curiously. In the end, he saw. Yun Jian stood in the distance. She had just turned her head when she saw the student leaning over to look behind the grass. At the same time, the student screamed and sat on the ground. Then he shouted crazily and screamed in fear. Chapter 1364. In the bushes, Lin Shuya's eyes were wide open. There seemed to be a trace of blood flowing from her eyeballs. Her lower body had a fatal wound from being bitten by wild beasts. She was suddenly placed in the bushes that could cover her body with her eyes wide open. The student who shouted just now happened to see a trace of blood flowing from Lin Shuya's wide open eyes. She looked like a female ghost in a movie that died with a grievance. Lin Shuya's body was completely cold and stiff. This was the body of a dead person. Within an hour after death, the body would be completely stiff. This was also the reason why the shroud must be put on within an hour after the death of the elderly. Because once the person died and couldn't change into other clothes in time, it would be very difficult to change clothes after an hour. When the soul returned to reality, the moment the student saw Lin Shuya's body, he sat down on the ground and crawled away. Hearing the student's words, everyone around screamed. It was the kind of fear, horror, and indescribable fear that came from the bones. No. How is it possible? How could Shuya be dead? This is impossible. Impossible. Han Ming was so scared that he didn't dare to go forward and take a look. Lung Hanja heard the voice. Although his hands were trembling violently, he still went forward with a few braver boys to take a look. Before leaving, Lung Hanja said to Muing, Ying, don't be afraid. Just stand here. Before he finished, Muing followed Yun Jian's footsteps and walked towards Lin Shuya's body. Really dead. Su Wei, who had quarreled with Lin Shuya on the cruise ship, was also scared. She sat down on the ground. I want to go home. Seeing this scene, some of the boys cried and shouted that they wanted to go home. When Peeling and Xiang Chishi stepped back, they were so scared that their faces changed drastically. For a moment, the surrounding people cried and shouted that they wanted to go home. They were so scared that their faces turned pale. In contrast, Yun Jian and Mu Ying went up and turned the body out of the bushes. Then they looked up and down a few times. Yun Jian looked at the body a few times and then stood up straight. Yun Jian, did you find anything? Lung Hanja strode forward. He couldn't help but look at Lin Shuya's body that looked like it was bitten by a beast. He asked Yun Jian. Oh. Yun Jian's eyes flashed. She shook her head calmly and said, "It's here, the helicopter is here." At this time the students saw the helicopter landing. At the same time they saw the instructor's face. As soon as Instructor Zhou got off the plane, he saw the body over there. He instantly frowned and asked uneasily, "What's going on?" Some of the students immediately cried of Instructor Zhou. After Instructor Zhou learned about the situation, his brows furrowed even tighter. Something happened to a student during military training. This was a very thing. But it had already. "Instructor, we want to go home." All the students were clamoring to leave. In the end, no one was willing to stay. Except for Yun Jian. "I'm not leaving. The competition isn't over yet." Yun Jian spoke faintly, her expression nonchalant. No one could tell what she was thinking at the moment. No matter the result of the competition, Lin Shuya's death was confirmed to be caused by a beast. In addition, they encountered the swamp and the snakes later. No one wanted to stay here. Who knew what would happen if they stayed here? "Yun Jian, are you sure you don't want to leave?" Instructor Zhou was surprised. "Yes." Yun Jian nodded. "It's you? It's you? You must be the one who killed my cousin. You planned it, didn't you? If it wasn't you, how did you know about the location blocker? How did you know about the situation here? You must be the one who killed my cousin. You must be holding a grudge because of what my cousin did to you before." Han Ming pointed at Yun Jian and shouted crazily in front of the instructor. "Then why didn't you say that your cousin also had a dispute with the girl from Wulin Military School? If that's the case, the girl from Wulin Military School is more suspicious." Lin Wan helped Yun Jian to reply. "I didn't." Su Wei cried back. "I won't leave until the competition is over." Yun Jian's calm voice sounded again. It was as if the death of a person who was chattering by her side yesterday had no effect on her at all. It was as if death was normal to her. While the people around were afraid, they also became suspicious of Yun Jian. They were more surprised that she wasn't afraid at all. Chapter 1365. We're already at this point and you're still not leaving Yun Jian? Shuya. Ken, you must have killed her. Only you would be at odds with Shuya and you are the strongest. It's easy for you to take advantage of our absence. You are the biggest suspect. Instructor. Instructor, hurry up and arrest her. Don't let her run away. Han Ming was so agitated that he couldn't control himself. If it weren't for the people around him, Han Ming would have pounced on Yun Jian. All right. We'll talk about everything after the 7-day survival event tomorrow. Instructor Zhou glanced at Yun Jian and said, Yun Jian, since you're not leaving, Min City Military Academy will win the competition if you can hold on until noon tomorrow, Instructor Zhou said and called the other students to leave. As for Lin Shuya's body, no one dared to look at it. Ying, let's go. Lung Hanja waited for Instructor Zhou to finish speaking before he turned to grab Mu Ying's hand. However, Mu Ying dodged his hand. I'll stay with Yun Jian, Mu Ying said coldly. At this time, everyone was in a state of panic and fear. Everyone was rushing to leave so no one noticed them. I want to stay with Yun Jian too. If Yun Jian doesn't leave, I won't leave either. Lin Wan was so scared that her face was frozen. However, she still pinched the corner of her clothes and refused to leave. She sincerely treated Yun Jian as a friend. Yun Jian was still on this island. Even if Lin Shuya died on this island, and even if she didn't know who killed her, since Yun Jian dared to stay, she trusted her. Ying, no matter where you are, I'll stay with you. Lung Hanja made up his mind and refused to leave. When Peeling, who was not far away, originally wanted to leave with the rest. Although when she heard Lung Hanja's decision, she also chose to stay. He was also scared that something like this had happened. The students were the first to run into the helicopter and escape. Crazy. On the sixth night, as usual, they piled up firewood for the night. Who chose to stay. However, because of the previous incident, Military Academy students were so scared that they stuttered. The night passed uneventfully. They ran to the seats of the helicopter one by 10 o'clock in the afternoon, to be the first to leave. Yun Jian, who was resting on a thick tree trunk, all the students who suddenly jumped down from the competition. Instructor Zhou took a deep look at Yun Jian. The instructor will send a helicopter to pick us up at 12 o'clock. Tomorrow at 12 o'clock, Lin saw that I'll send a helicopter here to pick you up. She was afraid that Yun Jian would get lost in a hotel near this island and wait for you. Then I'm going to announce the results of this outdoor survival event. Yun Jian curled her lips and didn't say much. Yun Jian nodded. After hearing her words, those who stayed behind were Yun Jian and they all followed her. When no one saw the smile on Yun Jian's brothers. Lung Hanja's friends were all seniors in the second and third years of high school. When they heard that Lung Hanja wanted to stay, they didn't want to leave. Chapter 1366. After the students left, the uninhabited island fell into silence once again. Although they had spent the night here after the incident, they still had to be extra vigilant in the last 2 hours. At this time, Yun Jian was unwilling to stay put. Although everyone was surprised, none of them made a sound. After the previous 2 performances, Yun Jian was undoubtedly the strongest among them. At the same time, no one knew what she was going to do. They didn't ask and just followed her. After walking for about half an hour, Yun Jian led everyone around the forest and came to the side of a small hill. There was a cave at the bottom of the hill. There seemed to be people walking in front of the cave. Yun Jian and the others were covered by the dense bushes and were quite far away, so the people walking in front of the cave didn't notice them. There are people here. Lin Wan covered her mouth and whispered so softly that no one could hear her if they didn't listen carefully. Don't make a sound if you see anything later. Yun Jian whispered to everyone. Her voice was very soft. However, the people around him still nodded very cooperatively. With that, Yun Jian led the group to move softly against the thick bushes and trees. The closer they got, the more they realized that the people standing in front of the cave were soldiers in military uniforms. One of them was the senior instructor who led the team a few days ago. Because they were in the field training camp, everyone liked to sit together at night and joke and talk, so everyone remembered the faces of every instructor. At this time, everyone covered their mouths. Only Yun Jian smiled. She wasn't surprised at all. Just as Lung Hanja, Lin Wan, when Peeling, Lung Hanja, and their friends covered their mouths and didn't make a sound, Yun Jian suddenly waved at Muing. Then the 2 of them leaped out of the bushes in tacit understanding. With a flip, they walked toward the men in military uniforms standing at the entrance of the cave. The men in military uniforms were shocked when they saw Yun Jian and Muing. However, they were all agile soldiers. Lung Hanja, Lin Wan, Wen Peeling and Lung Hanja's friends who were a distance away saw Yun Jian and Mu Ying dashing over and knocking out the men in military uniforms, one of whom was even their instructor, in a matter of seconds. Lung Hanja, Lin Wan and the others gasped at this scene. They couldn't help but be shocked. Even the senior instructor was no match for Yun Jian and Mu Ying? Just as they were shocked, Yun Jian and Mu Ying rushed into the cave. Soon it was noon. Instructor Zhou brought all the students back to the uninhabited island. Because someone had died on the uninhabited island, and it was their companion who had died, all the students were panicking. Instructor Zhou, you must catch Yun Jian. She must be the one who killed my cousin. Han Mingjing said fiercely. Instructor Zhou narrowed his eyes and looked at the forest. Over there. Someone came out. Someone couldn't help but shout. Is it Yun Jian and the others? They're still alive. Someone shouted again. But when everyone saw Yun Jian walking in front, Lung Hanja's friends were supporting a girl who had fainted, but they could still recognize who she was. Everyone was in an uproar. That's Lin Shuya? No. How is that possible? Isn't Lin Shuya dead? Instructor Zhou saw Yun Jian walking over. At the same time, when he saw Yun Jian calling the boys behind her to support Lin Shuya, his eyelids twitched. He couldn't help but be shocked. He thought Yun Jian was brave enough to insist on staying on this island. But who the hell could tell him how did she manage to break his flawless plan? Chapter 1367. Instructor Zhou lost his composure as he was the first to run toward where Yun Jian and the others were coming from. Looking at Lin Shuya who had fainted, Instructor Zhou held his forehead. The surrounding students were so shocked that they couldn't close their mouths. Han Ming on the other hand took 2 steps back. He was so scared that he screamed, Shuya? No, isn't Shuya already? She's a ghost? A ghost. Han Ming was so scared that he took 2 steps back. He had an indescribable cowardice. However, someone had already noticed that Lin Shuya, who was supported by Lung Hanja's friends, had a body temperature. This proved that she was still alive. Lin Shuya isn't dead. She's still breathing. A few observant girls noticed that although Lin Shuya was still unconscious, the collar below her nostrils was still floating gently. This meant that she was still breathing. What's going on? I clearly saw Lin Shuya's corpse. How is this possible? The first boy who discovered Lin Shuya's corpse stood out and asked in shock. Are you referring to the fake corpse? If you had looked carefully, you would have easily seen that it was fake. Although it was made to look like Lin Shuya, its characteristics wouldn't have changed. At that time, you were only afraid because Lin Shuya had been missing for a whole day. When you saw the corpse, you instinctively thought that it was Lin Shuya. You didn't even see clearly whether she was real or fake. Mu Ying stood beside Yun Jian and explained Yun Jian's doubts to everyone. Mu Ying's words revealed everything in one sentence. Indeed, after the incident, everyone didn't want to examine the corpse carefully. Even when Lung Hanja approached the corpse, he didn't dare to look directly at it. This also meant that everyone had missed the opportunity to discover the truth. Is it fun to be a spy? Yun Jian suddenly turned sideways and looked at Wen Peeling. She crossed her arms and narrowed her eyes. Wen Peeling, who was called out, was stunned. Instructor Zhou was stunned again. Instructor Zhou was the one who arranged this mission. He wanted to test the standards of this batch of freshmen. In fact, there were many flaws in this. For example, if the student who exclaimed at that time had taken a closer look and realized that Lin Shiya's body wasn't real, then there wouldn't have been so many students quitting the competition. This could be considered a test of a person's psychological quality. However, Instructor Zhou did not expect that Yun Jian had seen through all of this. Originally, Instructor Zhou was the creator of the game, but why did he feel that at this moment he was the confused passerby that was being played by Yun Jian? Yun Jian, what do you mean? Did senior sister Lingling offend you? How dare you call her a spy? Han Ming had a good impression of Wen Peeling, so when he heard Yun Jian's words, he immediately shouted back. Ha, I really can't hide it from you at all. Then I won't pretend anymore. But I have to say, junior sister, you're really amazing. When Wen Peeling heard Yun Jian's words, she was stunned for a few seconds. When she came back to her senses, she smiled at Yun Jian and said, in order to pretend that it was real, she even went against her conscience to secretly look at Lung Hanja and acted like she was in love with him. Han Ming originally thought that Yun Jian was randomly scolding people, but he didn't expect that Wen Peeling was really, alright, it's time to tell you. I did call Shuya out to knock her out, but I didn't install the location blocker. Plus, I've been with you all the time, so I didn't have the time to do that. As for Shuya, you definitely didn't notice when I knocked her out. Junior sister, I'm really curious, how did you find out that I was with Instructor Zhou? Wen Peeling smiled generously. She changed her pretentious attitude and asked Yun Jian openly. Yun Jian looked up and met Wen Peeling's eyes. Just as Wen Peeling, Instructor Zhou, and all the other students were looking straight at Yun Jian's red lips curled up and she smiled faintly. The loophole is too big. It's hard not to find out. These words made the surrounding people feel a little ashamed. Chapter 1368. Wen Peeling and Instructor Zhou smiled awkwardly. It was obvious that they were embarrassed. However, it was rare for Instructor Zhou to meet someone as good as Yun Jian. Haha. I thought that none of you would be able to pass this time. Who would have thought? The few of you actually passed through directly. Haha, when you return to school this time, you guys will be in the elite class. Instructor Zhou smiled at Yun Jian and Mu Ying and Lin Wan who were standing beside Yun Jian. There were only 3 people who passed this time. They were Yun Jian, Mu Ying and Lin Wan. Lung Hanja and his friends were seniors in their 2nd and 3rd year. Wen Peeling was also a senior in her 3rd year. None of them were in the elite class. In other words, the elite class was just organized and opened by Yun Jian's cohort. Therefore, the first batch of people who were selected were Yun Jian, Mu Ying and Lin Wan. I can really enter the elite class? Oh my god. I can really? Yun Jian, we can really enter the elite class. Mu Ying, I'm not dreaming, right? Lin Wan looked at Yun Jian in disbelief, then looked at Mu Ying. She pointed at herself and was so excited that words couldn't describe it. Yun Jian, so you already knew that the corpse was fake from the beginning? A girl in the same class as Yun Jian asked. Hearing this, Yun Jian replied softly, yes. Since you knew, why didn't you tell us? You're too much. You're deliberately trying to make our Wulin Military Academy lose the competition, aren't you? Su Wei stood in the distance. After hearing Yun Jian's reply, she pointed at Yun Jian and cursed. The students from Min City Military School did not blame Yun Jian, because if it were not for Yun Jian, their school would not have won against the students from Wulin Military School. But the students from Wulin Military Academy were different. This was originally a competition between 2 schools. The school that had more people passing would win. But now, it seemed that no one from Wulin Military Academy had passed. Therefore, Min City Military School's victory was assured. The students from Wulin Military Academy were not convinced. Su Wei took the lead to scold Yun Jian. Hearing this, the students from Min City Military Academy couldn't hold it in anymore. However, before the students from Min City Military Academy could help Yun Jian rebuke them, Yun Jian spoke to Su Wei herself. Yes, I knew it from the beginning, but why should I tell you? Also, I can tell you very clearly that I deliberately want your school to lose the competition. If you have the ability, discover it yourself. As she spoke, she narrowed her eyes with a smirk. Yun Jian's words caused the students from Min City Military Academy to agree. That's right, you Wulin Military Academy don't have the ability, and you still have the nerve to bark. Our Yunjian is powerful so she can win. What about you? You don't have the ability, so what are you shouting for? Yes. If you have the guts, show us your ability. If you don't, then go away. The students from Min City Military Academy started to fight back vigorously and soon gained the upper hand. At this moment, all the students from Min City Military Academy were proud to be in the same school as Yun Jian. At this moment, Yun Jian was everyone's idol, the god that everyone worshipped. The god of killing. She lived up to her name. She was worthy of this title and had the ability to do so. Students from Wulin Military Academy, get lost, haha. All the students from Min City Military Academy began to yell at the same time. Yun Jian is number one. Yun Jian is invincible. Yun Jian. Yun Jian. Yun Jian. For a moment, the curses and cheers resounded through the sky. Chapter 1369. The commotion lasted for half an hour until the students from Wulin Military School could not even lift their heads from the scolding. It was only then that the students from Min City Military School surrounded Yun Jian and boarded the cruise ship rented by the instructor to return home. When Yun Jian closed her eyes to rest, her classmates would hand her a bottle of water or a piece of biscuit politely, asking her if she was thirsty or hungry. They were extremely courteous. It was like how actors were treated when they met their fans. When they returned to the military school, it was already the 3rd of September. The military school started on the 3rd of August. A month's time was neither too much nor too little, so the return trip happened to be the 3rd of September. The students from Wulin Military School returned to Anjing Province dejectedly. The students from Min City Military School, on the other hand, surrounded Yun Jian as they went back. The freshmen who did not participate in the outdoor survival activities were resting at home. When Yun Jian and the rest of the group returned to the military school, the students from the 2nd and 3rd years had already started their classes as usual. Lung Hanja, Wen Peeling, and the rest of the seniors who were invited back to lead the team were given a week-long break. Yun Jian and the rest of the freshmen were given a week-long break as well. It was considered a benefit after a month of long-term military training. Of course, the official classes would begin a week later. In other words, classes would officially begin on the 10th of September when they returned to school. Yun Jian, Mu Ying, and Lin Wan moved their luggage to the classroom of Year 1-2 first and packed their bags to go home. The elite class had yet to be reorganized, so Yun Jian and the other two could not form a class. The school would start selecting students when school reopened. There were a total of 30 places. This meant that there were 27 freshmen in Year 1 other than Yun Jian and the other two who would enter the elite class. Yun Jian had also heard that the elite class had more practical training. This was to her liking as well. It was already 3 in the afternoon when she returned to the military school. After placing her luggage in the classroom, Yun Jian planned to return to Longmen City. She even went to greet Chu Ning and the rest before she left. Chu Ning shrieked the moment she saw Yun Jian, yelling, "Hey! Yun Jian, your performance during the military training has spread like wildfire. Now you're a celebrity in our school. Do you have to be so powerful?" He even defeated a senior instructor during the wilderness survival event. That last sentence immediately attracted the attention of a lot of people. Yun Jian? Is that slashing god from Team Monarch? It was said that during the military training she had beaten up a senior instructor. Chapter 1370. After all, they had not seen each other for years. Yun Jian had agreed to Mu Ying's invitation immediately. When they were on the uninhabited island, Mu Ying had invited Yun Jian back to the Amazon forest for a stroll and Yun Jian had agreed. Therefore, Mu Ying and Yun Jian had brought up the topic when they walked to the school gate together. "Yun Jian, let's go back to the Amazon forest together tomorrow?" Mu Ying asked. Mu Ying and Yun Jian were never joking. When they were on the uninhabited island, Mu Ying and Yun Jian's conversation was very normal, but it was treated as a joke. However, even if there was no one around, their conversation would still be the same and would not change. It was just that their conversation was overheard by their classmates passing by and they could not help turning to look at them. Could it be that these two beautiful girls were fools? Yun Jian and Mu Ying were not bothered. Yun Jian replied Mu Ying immediately, "See you the day after tomorrow in Longmen City. I'm going home. I haven't been back for a month." Mu Ying nodded at Yun Jian's reply. Yun Jian had already called Qin Yiru to tell her that she would not be going home tonight but tomorrow. Ying. Just as both of them walked out of the school gate and were about to turn into a fork in the road, Lung Hanja's loud shout came from behind them. Yun Jian and Mu Ying did not even have to turn around to imagine Lung Hanja's current state. "Why are you following me?" Mu Ying only asked softly when Lung Hanja ran up to Mu Ying. I'm worried about you guys, so I'm sending you home. Lung Hanja could not find a reason, so he came up with a random excuse. Yun Jian could tell how fake it was right away, but no one pointed it out. Up to you, Mu Ying said softly. Then she walked side by side with Yun Jian, tacitly agreeing that Lung Hanja was following her. Lung Hanja was happy to see this. His Ying could finally let him follow her. He was already very satisfied with this. The Mu family was Mu Ying's family. Unlike outsiders, the Mu family lived together as a whole family. At the same time, the Mu family lived in an extremely luxurious villa. Mu Ying's grandparents were still in charge of the Mu family. Mu Ying's grandparents and uncles, as long as they were male relatives who lived in the main house with her, were all soldiers. Among them, Mu Ying's grandfather held the highest position. Mu Ying was truly the second generation of the military. Mu Ying's grandparents had 3 sons, all of whom were soldiers. Mu Ying was the daughter of the second son's family. She had a biological brother above her. They were both soldiers and their status was not low. After Mu Ying brought Yun Jian home, Lung Hanja followed her in. Mu Ying's aunt stood in the middle of the villa. Mu Ying's aunt, Madame Yang, had always been at odds with Mu Ying. Chapter 1371. As Madame Yang spoke, she couldn't help but push her daughter, trying to get her daughter to lean against Lung Hanja. Lung Hanja's status in the family was not something the Mu family could compare to. Although the Lung family and the Mu family had been friends for generations, the Lung family was not only stronger than the Mu family in terms of military power, but more importantly, the Lung family was also involved in the legal business and developed rapidly in business. Their legal business influence was even well known in country Z. Madame Yang wasn't a fool. She understood and desperately wanted her daughter to get close to Lung Hanja, this treasure mountain. As for Mu Ying, Madame Yang had always disliked her. Even Mu Ying's daughter Yun Jian was hostile towards her. Mu Rou could be considered Mu Ying's cousin, but she didn't get along with Mu Ying. After hearing her mother's words, Mu Rou glared at Mu Ying fiercely before leaning towards Lung Hanja. Brother Hanjin, you haven't come to visit me in so long. Sister Rou misses you so much, Mu Rou said coquettishly. At the same time, she wanted to pounce on Lung Hanja. However, before Mu Rou could pounce on Lung Hanja dodged. Mu Rou, please respect yourself, Lung Hanja said coldly. Only when he was facing Mu Ying would his expression change. Mu Rou stood there awkwardly. Madame Yang's face instantly turned red. Yun Jian, let's go to the backyard. Mu Ying didn't even look at Madame Yang and Mu Rou's expressions. She planned to bring Yun Jian directly to the backyard. Mu Ying had never looked at Madame Yang and Mu Rou in the eye. Mu Ying wasn't interested in these nominal aunts and cousins. She didn't have the mood to play tricks with them. If it weren't for her grandparents treating her well, Mu Ying would have moved out long ago. Backyard? Mu Ying, stop right there. How dare you bring an outsider to the backyard? Are you crazy? The backyard is where our Mu family's own people train. When Madame Yang heard Mu Ying's words, her expression changed drastically. She rushed forward and blocked Mu Ying and Yun Jian's path, not allowing Mu Ying and Yun Jian to continue walking towards the back door of the villa. Outsiders are not allowed to enter? Why haven't I heard of this before? Didn't Lung Hanja go there often? His surname isn't Mu Ying. Hearing Madame Yang's words, Mu Ying's face darkened as she spoke softly. Lung Hanja was a little disappointed to hear Mu Ying call him by his full name, but he was also glad that his Ying mentioned him again. In contrast to Lung Hanja's disappointment, Madame Yang's expression darkened. That's right, the backyard of the Mu family was a specialized training ground. The Mu family was originally a military family. All the men in the Mu family were soldiers and half of the women in the military were women. Chapter 1372. Madame Yang and Mu Rou were obviously shocked. The Mu family members were usually in the military, but Madame Yang and Mu Rou were different. Madame Yang was born as a rich young lady, and she didn't want her daughter to fight and kill, so she wanted her daughter to take the high school entrance exams and college entrance exams. This was originally a very common thing, but it was not common in the Mu family. Other than the descendants of the Mu family who had no talent at all, the rest of the family members worked hard to become outstanding soldiers. Madame Yang actually envied the people in the Mu family from the bottom of her heart. Sometimes, when they went out, they even bragged about who was more powerful in the Mu family. But Madame Yang never thought that the friend that her most hated niece, Mu Ying, brought back would be so powerful. Madame Yang was dumbfounded. Like Madame Yang, Mu Rou was also dumbfounded. Mu Rou originally thought that she was the only one who didn't know how to use knives and guns, but now there was Yun Jian who didn't know how to use knives and guns even more than her. Because Yun Jian looked soft and weak, Mu Rou automatically classified Yun Jian as an ordinary person. But she never thought that Yun Jian would catch the fan flying towards her without even looking. If the fan hit Yun Jian's face, the pain would be unavoidable, but there wouldn't be any major problems. Just as Madame Yang and Mu Rou were stunned, they saw Yun Jian throw the fan back to the girl who had missed. Yun Jian seemed to throw the fan lightly, but when the girl over there caught the fan, her hands and feet were in a mess for a while. "Let's go over there." Mu Ying pointed to a short and old wooden hut next to the training ground. "Okay." Yun Jian softly replied. When the two of them walked over, Madame Yang and Mu Rou were still in shock. When Madame Yang and Mu Rou came to their senses, Mu Rou stomped her feet, then shouted at Yun Jian's back, "You're so powerful, if you have the guts, stay later and spar with my eldest cousin." Everyone could hear the provocation and unwillingness in her words. Yun Jian only laughed coldly but didn't do anything else. Mu Rou, who stood rooted to the ground, could only stomp her feet. Lung Hanja, on the other hand, chased after Mu Ying. "Ayo. I haven't asked your name yet? You actually caught my fan just now, and also, I almost couldn't catch it when you threw it back at me. Can you tell me, how did you train to be so powerful? Can you teach me?" The girl who accidentally threw the fan in front of Yun Jian immediately ran over. When Yun Jian and Mu Ying were about to enter the wooden hut, she caught up to Yun Jian and stopped her, looking at her with a pair of curious eyes. "It's very simple." Yun Jian didn't say much, she only said these 3 words, then entered the wooden hut with Mu Ying. I'm Ying Ying's little cousin, my name is Mu Shuang. Big sister, can you tell me how to play this fan as well as you?" The girl who called herself Mu Shuang saw Yun Jian enter the wooden hut. She followed up and asked. Mu Shuang was the youngest daughter of Mu Ying's uncle. She was 15 years old now and was already in the 3rd year of middle school. She had been mischievous since young, but was determined to become an outstanding soldier. When she saw Yun Jian playing with the fan so well, she quickly ran over to ask. Yun Jian smiled faintly but didn't say much. Thus, Mu Shuang followed Yun Jian and Mu Ying into the wooden hut. Inside the wooden hut, Mu Ying led Yun Jian to a place where weapons were placed, then pointed at a shabby little desk in front of them, where all kinds of butterfly knives were placed. "These are the butterfly knives I've collected over the years, I know you like them. I thought I'd never see you again, but now, I'm giving them to you personally." Mu Ying turned to look at Yun Jian, her eyes flashing with sincerity. Hearing this, Mu Shuang didn't know what to say. Chapter 1373. Something flickered in Yun Jian's eyes when she heard Mu Ying's words. She went over and caressed the pile of butterfly knives on the small, shabby desk. Then there was a deathly silence. It was as quiet as still water. At this moment, even the talkative Mu Shuang and the suspicious Lung Hanja couldn't help but hold their breaths. Just when Mu Shuang and Lung Hanja thought Yun Jian wouldn't speak, they heard Yun Jian's calm and gentle voice. "I like it a lot." Her voice sounded very ordinary, but compared to Yun Jian's voice, it was a little lighter. It was a voice that could make one's imagination run wild. Mu Shuang's heart trembled slightly. "It's good that you like it." Mu Ying turned her head and smiled at Yun Jian. The way they spoke was very ordinary, as if they were strangers who had just met. But the two of them gave Lung Hanja and Mu Shuang the same feeling as if they were old friends. Although they didn't know why they felt this way, Lung Hanja and Mu Shuang were completely shocked. Even they didn't know why they were shocked. It wasn't until a rough and hoarse roar came from outside the wooden hut that everyone reacted. "What? Little sister Mu Rou, someone bullied you?" "Oh, who bullied you?" The male voice was slightly hoarse, as if he was shouting at the top of his lungs. Soon Mu Rou's soft and pitiful voice came from outside the wooden hut. "No, no one bullied me. Cousin Mu Ying also didn't casually bring strangers into the backyard." When this voice came out, the few people standing in the small wooden house in the backyard could even imagine Mu Rou's pitiful appearance when she pretended to be herself. "What? Mu Ying brought strangers into the backyard? That's our Mu family's secret training ground. Does she want the whole world to know that we have a training ground? I'm going to teach her a lesson now." The rough male voice growled angrily. Then they could hear the owner of the male voice walking towards them with large strides. "Let's go out first," Mu Ying said to Yun Jian with a slight frown. "Okay." Yun Jian nodded. When the two of them were about to walk out of the cabin, they heard Mu Shuang's surprised voice. Why are there fewer butterfly knives here? Didn't I just count 21? Right after Mu Shuang spoke, Yun Jian parted the hem of her shirt and showed the butterfly knives strapped to her waist side by side for her to see. Mu Shuang was stunned. After a while, she came back to her senses and stared at Yun Jian with wide eyes. "When did you hide the butterfly knife?" I clearly saw that you didn't do anything just now. And how did you hide so many butterfly knives? It looks like you didn't hide anything at all. This is too powerful. Mu Shuang's words were exactly what surprised Lung Hanja. Yun Jian smiled. She didn't say anything and walked out of the cabin with Mu Ying. After Yun Jian and Mu Ying walked out of the cabin, they saw the owner of the rough voice standing in front of them. This person was about 20 years old. He was wearing a military uniform and looked quite handsome. Seeing an unfamiliar girl standing beside Mu Ying, the man in military uniform frowned. Mu Ro was standing beside him. After the man frowned, he turned to look at Yun Jian. He shouted at Mu Ying angrily, "Mu Ying, are you the one who brought this stranger into our backyard?" As he spoke, the man clenched his fists, causing them to emit cracking sounds as he spoke in a dignified manner. Chapter 1374. This man was Mu Shuang's biological older brother and also the biological son of Mu Ying's uncle. His name was Mu Rui. He was 28 years old and served as a special forces soldier in the army. Although Mu Rui was Mu Shuang's biological older brother, for some reason he doted on his cousin Mu Ro. In the past, whenever Mu Ro was bullied, he would act as if he had heard something terrible and rush up to protect Mu Ro. It was the same today. When Mu Ro said such a sentence in front of Mu Rui shouted at Mu Ying in a hoarse voice. Mu Ying brought Yun Jian out not because she wanted to deal with Mu Rui. "Yun Jian, I'll pack the remaining butterfly knives for you when you go home. Let's go to my room now," Mu Ying said as she led Yun Jian around Mu Rui. Mu Rui saw this. Because his biological younger sister, Mu Shuang, grabbed his arm and told him not to make things difficult for Yun Jian, he had already planned to stop. Just as he thought this, he heard Mu Ro cry softly to Madame Yang, "I don't have a biological older brother. You all have biological older brothers. Mom, why don't you give birth to a biological older brother for me?" Mu Ying was the daughter of the eldest son, second son, and third son of the Mu family. The second son and third son of the Mu family each had a boy and a girl. Only the eldest son had a girl. Mu Ying also had a biological older brother, but he didn't come back today. Mu Ro's cries were too much for the people present, especially Mu Rui. He was closer to Mu Ro. When he heard Mu Ro's words, he immediately stood in front of Yun Jian and Mu Ying. "Mu Ying, how did you bully younger sister Mu Ro just now? Or did you say that this friend of yours bullied younger sister Mu Ro? Hurry up and apologize." Mu Rui said as he clenched his fist. Seeing her brother, Mu Rui, bullying Mu Ying and Yun Jian, and knowing that her brother was very strong, Mu Shuang quickly ran away. She ran away, but she didn't really run away. Instead, she went to call for help. Seeing that Mu Rui stood up for her, Mu Ro, who was standing behind Mu Rui, sneered at Mu Ying and Yun Jian from an angle that Mu Rui couldn't see. Mu Rui was a special forces soldier, and a national key special forces soldier. He was very strong, more powerful than the average advanced special forces soldier, and was protected by the country. At the same time, Mu Rui would be qualified to represent Country Z and enter the hunting school in half a year's time. The number of special forces soldiers in Country Z who could enter the hunting school could be counted on one hand, but it was also the lifelong wish of countless special forces soldiers. To be selected as a candidate to enter the hunting school, there was no doubt that Mu Rui was very strong. After all, for a place like the hunting school, the death rate was extremely high if an ordinary person entered. There, the elimination rate could sometimes be as high as 80%. Chapter 1375. The hunting school is not a place that young people like you can go to whenever you want. Moreover, you have to sign a life and death agreement before entering the hunting school. Do you know what a life and death agreement is? Signing a life and death agreement means that once you enter the hunting school, no matter what happens, the consequences will be borne by the student. During the training period, you can die at any time. Aren't you afraid? When Mu Rui came back to his senses, he obviously did not believe what Yun Jian said. For a moment, he forgot what he said earlier and spoke to Yun Jian in a very agitated tone. To be able to enter and graduate from the hunting school was a great honor in the eyes of the special forces from various countries. Mu Rui was also proud to be qualified to enter the hunting school. However, now that a young girl suddenly stood in front of him and told him that she wanted to go to the hunting school, other than not believing it, Mu Rui was extremely displeased that Yun Jian used something that was a great honor in his eyes to fool around. Therefore, when he spoke to Yun Jian, Mu Rui's tone was rather agitated and had a hint of disgust towards Yun Jian. Mu Rui said so much because he wanted Yun Jian to back off and recognize herself. The hunting school was not a place that anyone could enter just because they wanted to. Not everyone could enter just because they felt that they were qualified. Just when Mu Rui thought that the life and death agreement he mentioned would scare Yun Jian into backing off, he saw Yun Jian curl her lips into a faint smile. In the next second she stopped smiling and raised her cold eyes. I know everything about the hunting school better than you do. As for the life and death agreement, if you want to use your strength to defy the heavens and disregard life and death, you don't deserve to say that. Yun Jian's voice was not loud, but it was so clear that Mu Rui and everyone around felt that her voice was extremely loud. Everyone around them was stupefied by Yun Jian's words. Don't make it sound like you've really been to the hunting school. You're just a little kid in your teens. You really know so much. If you have the ability. At this time, Mu Rou dropped her soft and weak disguise. She was interrupted halfway through her words. Ah. This little girl's words were quite interesting. I love it. An old man in his 70s wearing a military uniform walked over from afar. There were several people behind the old man, all of whom were dressed in military uniforms. At this moment, Mu Shuang, who had just run out, was holding Grandpa Shin's hand and walking over. Needless to say, he was Mu Ying's grandfather, Grandpa Mu. Grandpa, look at my brother. He only knows how to bully people. Mu Shuang grabbed Grandpa Mu's hand and shook it. Then she pointed at Mu Rui and said to Grandpa Mu, "Ha ha. Little girl, you said that you know more about the hunting school than my grandson Rui. Then have you been to the hunting school?" Grandpa Mu smiled kindly at Mu Shuang. Then he turned his eyes to Yun Jian and laughed. Mu Rui could be considered as Grandpa Mu's grandson. Yun Jian narrowed her eyes. Grandpa Mu was not as simple as he seemed. Yes. Yun Jian made a muffled sound from her throat. Little girl, standing in front of you is Grandpa Mu, one of the first batch of special forces to be sent to the hunting school to further his studies. He is the only one in that batch who successfully graduated from the hunting school. He is also the first student to graduate from the hunting school in our country. Even the principal of the hunting school, Chan's, keeps in touch with Grandpa Mu. One of the people standing behind Grandpa Mu said loudly to Yun Jian. His words were full of pride and bragging. Even Grandpa Mu was affected by the atmosphere and felt a trace of pride in his heart. However, at this moment Yun Jian, who was standing in front of everyone, suddenly smiled and looked straight at Grandpa Mu. She said calmly. Chapter 1376. Chan's was the principal of the hunting school. Hearing Yun Jian's words, Old Master Mu and the people standing behind him were all stunned. Even Mu Rui gasped. How dare Yun Jian talk about the principal of the hunting school like that? Did she know what she was saying? After they came back to their senses, Mu Rou and Mrs. Yang stood at a distance. Mu Rou questioned Yun Jian. Are you out of your mind to show off? How dare you talk about Principal Chan's like that? Even my grandpa is respectful to Principal Chan's. Who do you think you are? How dare you talk about Principal Chan's like that? Mu Rou kept mentioning Principal Chan's, but in fact Mu Rou did not even know what Principal Chan's looked like. It was only because Old Master Mu used to talk about Principal Chan's in front of his children and grandchildren in a respectful tone. Therefore Mu Rou played along with Old Master Mu's favorite words and talked back to Yun Jian. Yun Jian chuckled softly at that. It was a cold sneer. Seeing this, Old Master Mu's heart skipped a beat. Just as Mu Rou finished speaking, Old Master Mu looked at Yun Jian in shock. Without caring about Mu Rou, he continued, How did you know that Principal Chan's was assassinated by a high-level assassin? He looked at Yun Jian in shock with his mouth slightly agape. This scene stunned the people standing behind Old Master Mu. It had been many years since Old Master Mu showed such a shocked expression. And most importantly, the rude words that the little girl had just said were actually the truth? Is it that hard to find out? Yun Jian glanced sideways at Old Master Mu. She pursed her lips slightly and smiled. If Old Master Mu only treated Yun Jian as an interesting child at the beginning, he had to look at her seriously now. To the average person it was very difficult to find out about this. However, to the people in the underworld and the industry, this was not a secret at all. It was the first time that Grandpa Mu had met a little girl whom he could not see through. He narrowed his eyes. Grandpa Mu suddenly burst into laughter to ease the awkwardness. Haha, you little girl, interesting. It was really too interesting. That's right, Principal Chan's was indeed assassinated by a group of high-level assassins some time ago. I didn't expect a junior like you to know about this. Old Master Mu did not plan to get to the bottom of Yun Jian's story in front of everyone. He even changed the way he addressed Yun Jian from a little girl to a little girl. If it had been anyone else present, they would have asked Yun Jian everything. However, Grandpa Mu was already in his 70s. At his age he had experienced a lot. Naturally, he understood that the more mysterious something was, the more it was best not to get to the bottom of it. He wouldn't do anything that would bring trouble to himself. Grandpa Mu's words made Mu Rou feel ashamed. After all, Mu Rou was the first one who stood out to refute Yun Jian. Mu Rui didn't expect that Yun Jian would know so much about something that even he didn't know. For the first time he felt that he had met his match. And the other party was a girl who was not even 18 years old yet. Little girl, you're so interesting. You must stay with us for a few more days. I heard that the military academy has a 7-day break, right? Why don't you stay with us for the next few days? Grandpa Mu tried to persuade Yun Jian to stay. It was a very ordinary way to persuade someone to stay. However, when it came from Grandpa Mu's mouth, the meaning was very different. Grandpa Mu had a great military record when he was young. He was even a general. Even though he had retired now, he was still very prestigious. Most importantly, those who could be invited by Grandpa Mu to stay were either elites with amazing military records or famous military talents. However, it was the first time he had seen someone invite a teenage girl in such a solemn tone. Therefore, everyone around was surprised, especially those standing behind Grandpa Mu. Chapter 1377. Yun Jian's rejection was straightforward, leaving no room for negotiation. Yun Jian's rejection left everyone dumbfounded. Even old Master Mu himself was a little surprised. In the past, people could not wait to curry favor with him. But today he personally invited Yun Jian, but Yun Jian turned him down on the spot. This was something that had never happened before. Slightly shocked, old Master Mu swallowed his saliva. Then he swallowed and said to Yun Jian, "Little girl, you must come to my house when you're free." Okay. Yun Jian nodded this time. Mu Ying was at the Mu family's house, so she would definitely come over. Yun Jian, let's go. Mu Ying pulled Yun Jian's hand and walked towards her room in the villa. After taking 2 steps, Mu Ying thought of Lung Hanja again. She turned to look at Lung Hanja expressionlessly and said to him, "You can leave first." After that, she went to Yun Jian's room with her. Old Master Mu and the others who were standing on the training ground were totally ignored. Fortunately, old Master Mu knew Mu Ying well. As Mu Ying's friend, Yun Jian must be the same. Let's go. Let's go. Old Master Mu smiled awkwardly and then left with his people. Mu Rou, who was standing at the same spot, stomped her feet. Madame Yang pressed her shoulder. Seeing that Mu Rui had left, Mu Rou said to Mrs. Yang angrily, "Mom, I'm so angry." Don't worry. Humph, I don't believe that I can't handle these 2 girls. Mrs. Yang snorted and comforted her daughter. She looked at Yun Jian and Mu Ying's figures and wondered why she was so angry. Yun Jian and Mu Ying had just taken 2 steps when a sweet girl's voice came from behind. "Sister Mu Ying, wait for me." As soon as she said that, Yun Jian caught sight of a small figure hugging Yun Jian and Mu Ying's shoulders. Yun Jian did not avoid it. It was Mu Shuang. Mu Shuang and Mu Ying were very close. She also liked Yun Jian. "I was the one who called Grandpa here just now. I was afraid that Auntie and the others would trick my brother to bully you guys together." Mu Shuang stood between Yun Jian and Mu Ying happily as she hugged both of their shoulders. Mu Shuang was only 1 year younger than Yun Jian's current body. Her actual age was 2 years younger. However, Mu Shuang gave people the feeling that she was a little sister who should be protected. Even Mu Ying, who had a cold personality, could not help but reach out and rub Mu Shuang's head. She said softly, "Good girl." Mu Shuang lowered her head shyly. Then she turned to Yun Jian and asked, "Sister, can I sleep with you and Sister Mu Ying tonight?" "Up to you." Yun Jian threw her 2 simple words. "Yeah, that's great. I'll go get my blanket." Mu Shuang ran to her room energetically. The Mu family had dinner together as a family. Other than Madame Yang and Mu Rou, everyone else was especially friendly to Yun Jian. Madame Yang, who was outside the door, used the small crack under the bedroom door to blow in the knockout incense. She didn't stop until she was sure that the amount was enough to knock out Yun Jian, Mu Ying, and Mu Shuang. By this time, Madame Yang had already confirmed that Yun Jian and the other 2 had been knocked out. She directly used the spare key to open the door to Mu Ying's room, then beckoned the few vulgar men who were dressed like beggars to enter Mu Ying's room. "Remember what I said. Be quick with your hands and feet. Hurry up and come out when you're done," Madame Yang said impatiently. The few vulgar men dressed like beggars walked into Mu Ying's room one after another. After a while there were banging sounds and muffled grunts. Why were the grunts so rough? Madame Yang shook her head and stopped thinking about it. It was fine as long as it was done. After about 10 minutes, Madame Yang pulled her daughter Mu Rou to open the door. She thought that the beggars were done and urged them to hurry up. However, the moment she opened the door, Madame Yang felt a dark shadow suddenly strike her neck and she fainted. Chapter 1379. At the far end of the corridor, under the moonlight, a petite and perfect figure walked out of the bedroom. Yun Jian was the one who had knocked out Madame Yang and Mu Rou. As for the banging sounds and the slightly rough groans, Yun Jian and Mu Ying had grabbed the men dressed as beggars and stuffed large pieces of tissue into their mouths. Then, afraid that Madame Yang and Mu Rou would not believe them, she would kick the men every few seconds. This was the reason for the banging sounds. Madame Yang had thought it was strange, but she did not care. In the end, they were tied up by Yun Jian. Aunt and cousin, why did they do this to us? Mu Shuang was a little shocked, but she did not show any signs of being unable to accept it. On the contrary, Mu Shuang's ability to accept it was beyond imagination. They're so bored that they're waiting for me to return the favor. Yun Jian dragged Madame Yang and Mu Rou into the bedroom. In the bedroom, 5 or 6 men dressed as beggars loosened the tissue in their mouths and begged Yun Jian for mercy. Oh my God. I was wrong. It's all their fault. They paid us 5,000 yuan to do this. It's all their fault. Let us go. We'll do anything you ask us to do. Please don't call the police. The 5 or 6 men who were dressed like beggars did not say anything. Madame Yang and Mu Rou had paid them 5,000 yuan to do this. Not only would they get money, but they would also get to sleep with delicate and clean female students. This was a very good deal. Oh, the 3 of us are only worth 5,000 yuan? Yun Jian hooked her chin with her thumb and index finger. She looked at the 5 or 6 men dressed as beggars lazily and then smiled playfully. This smile was slightly strange and it gave people a creepy feeling just by looking at it. These 5 or 6 men dressed as beggars were shocked by Yun Jian and Mu Ying's frightening skills. Especially Yun Jian. When the 5 or 6 men dressed like beggars entered the house, they couldn't even cry for help. They were tied up by Yun Jian and Mu Ying and their mouths were covered. Anything. Yun Jian narrowed her eyes when she heard the words of the 5 or 6 men dressed as beggars. Right. Sister. Can we call you Big Sister? Sis, please let us go. We are really innocent. These 5 or 6 men dressed like beggars were afraid that they would make Yun Jian unhappy, so they shouted one after another. It's not that I can't let you go. I'll give each of you 10 cents. Drag these 2 women into the woods. Just do whatever they wanted you to do to us. Yun Jian, who had been sitting lazily on the bed, stood up and looked at the men with narrowed eyes. At the same time, Yun Jian took out 6 10-cents from nowhere. Then she clasped her hands and threw the 6 10-cents in front of the 6 men. Yang Shi's and Mu Rou's prices were only worth 60 cents. The 6 men were scared silly. They didn't know why, but Yun Jian's aura and her gesture of taking out 60 cents from nowhere scared them out of their wits. Mu Ying, untie them, Yun Jian said with pursed lips. Hearing this, Mu Ying stepped forward and untied the ropes on the 6 men. Let me give you a piece of advice. You'd better do your jobs obediently. Otherwise, don't appear in Min City in the future. Otherwise, Yun Jian didn't finish her sentence. The 6 men were staring at Yun Jian in unison. They were obviously scared stiff. However, Yun Jian curled her lips slightly and said, Don't look at me like that. I know that you are from Min City and can't leave Min City. Do your jobs well and pretend that nothing happened today. Yun Jian's words made the 6 men's eyes widen again. Chapter 1380. If one were to ask Yun Jian how she knew that these 6 men were residents of Min City and that it was impossible for them to leave the city, the answer was neither simple nor difficult. It was a secret. Oh my God. We'll definitely do as you say. We'll listen to you. We'll listen to you. One of the men was so frightened by Yun Jian's words that he thought that Yun Jian was psychic. He was so scared that he almost peed in his pants. Throw these 2 lumps out. Yun Jian pointed at Madame Yang and Mu Rou on the ground. Because the 6 men were afraid of Yun Jian, they quickly dragged Madame Yang and Mu Rou away and really brought them to the forest. Mu Shuang, who had recovered from her shock, pursed her lips and said, Does this count as first aunt cheating on first uncle? Maybe? Yun Jian tilted her head slightly at Mu Shuang and said these 2 words softly. 10 minutes later, Yun Jian, Mu Ying, and Mu Shuang were lying on the bed in the bedroom again. At this moment, there was a sudden commotion downstairs, followed by a series of sirens. Mu Ying and Mu Shuang, who had just fallen asleep, sat up straight when they heard the sirens. Mu Ying sat up straight on the bed and explained to Yun Jian as she got off the bed, This is the siren of our Mu family. It will only sound when something big has happened. Gather at the front hall. Sister Mu Ying, did something really happen? Mu Shuang asked fearfully. At the same time, she got off the bed and put on her shoes without slowing down. Yun Jian narrowed her eyes slightly. Mu Shuang was used to wearing long pajamas, so she had to wear a pair of pants under her dress. Yun Jian and Mu Ying had developed the habit of wearing normal clothes when they slept. This way they could just get out of bed and leave if something happened. Mu Shuang was also nimble. After Mu Shuang put on her pants, the three of them went downstairs without even changing out of her pajamas. Downstairs, in front of the whole family ran out in their pajamas when they heard the sirens. "Dad, Mom. What's the matter?" Mu Shuang shouted at a middle-aged man and woman who were not far away from him. Take the children and leave quickly. It's a killer who's after me." Grandpa Mu stood in front of everyone and Grandma Mu was beside him. Old Master Mu calmly spoke to his second son, Mu Ying's father, Mu Hong. "Dad, what about you?" Mu Hong's face darkened when he heard that it was an assassin. Then he asked anxiously. "The children are more important. Evacuate with the children first." Grandpa Mu clenched his fists and shouted at Mu Hong, "Quick! Go now." Mu Hong turned around and asked the children to leave with him. "My wife and Ruru are missing? Where did they go? Where did they go?" Grandpa Mu's eldest son, Mu Feng's voice could be heard from upstairs. "Go first. You guys go first." Grandpa Mu urged Mu Hong again when he saw that the situation was not good. Bam! Chapter 1381. This sharp and straightforward female voice sounded like the heavenly voice of the Grim Reaper in everyone's ears. Especially old Master Mu, he was ready to fight to the death with this group of senior killers. He just wanted to buy time for the children to leave. The Mu family could not be destroyed. The children could not be implicated. This was what old Master Mu was thinking now. For him, as long as he could watch the children grow up healthily, it would be the hope of his life. He could die, but the children couldn't. They still had a bright future ahead of them. However, old Master Mu did not expect that this female voice would be heard in an instant and reach everyone's ears without any warning. More importantly, the sharp and straightforward female voice belonged to Yun Jian, this mysterious and amazing girl. "Ying, tell your friend to stop talking. Dad will take you away." Everyone in the Mu family was shocked, especially Mu Hong. He hurriedly said to Mu Ying, trying to get Mu Ying to stop Yun Jian from talking nonsense. Mu Hong didn't mean anything else. He just felt that if Yun Jian said something else, she would attract the attention of this group of senior killers in front of them. Yun Jian was a friend that their daughter, Mu Ying, had brought home as a guest in the first place. Yun Jian was the most innocent. If something really happened to Yun Jian in their house, even Mu Hong would feel bad about it. Not to mention old Master Mu. Old Master Mu was a frank soldier, although he had been retired for many years. If anything happened to Yun Jian, who was a guest in his house, old Master Mu was the kind of person who would sacrifice his own grandson. They had to save Yun Jian's righteousness first. Seeing that Lone Wolf and the other senior killers were stunned after hearing Yun Jian's words, old Master Mu hurriedly urged his second son, Mu Hong, and Mu Hong's wife Tian Fangfang, to take the children away first. Go quickly." Grandpa Mu takes out a foldable military knife from his pocket and stands in front of everyone. He is the first to confront Lone Wolf and the other senior killers. "Kids, come with us." Tian Fangfang ran over and grabbed Yun Jian and Mu Ying's hands. She was about to leave through the back door of the villa. Mu Ying had a biological brother who was not at home at the moment. Tian Fangfang ran over and grabbed Yun Jian and Mu Ying's hands, intending to evacuate as soon as possible. However, when she tugged at her daughter Mu Ying and Yun Jian's hands, she realized that the two of them did not turn around with her at all. Yun Jian let go of Tian Fangfang's hand that was holding her gently and took 2 steps toward Lone Wolf before going around old Mu to stand in front of the crowd, her sharp gaze meeting Lone Wolf's. When Lone Wolf heard Yun Jian's words just now, he was completely stunned. Chapter 1382. Not only Lone Wolf but the assassins behind him were dumbfounded by Yun Jian's baffling reply as well. Old Master Mu, who stood behind Yun Jian, was shocked as well. He was not the only one who was taken aback. Everyone in the Mu family who stood behind old Master Mu sucked in a breath as well. What did Yun Jian mean by what she said now? What do you mean? Even Mu Rui, who had been so aggressive just now, asked Yun Jian with a trembling voice. Mu Rui didn't even know why he was trembling. Mu Rui felt that Yun Jian was even more mysterious. From the moment he saw Yun Jian, he felt that this little girl was covered with a veil, making her unfathomable. However, Mu Rui didn't like others to be more mysterious than him, so he denied Yun Jian from the beginning. Lone Wolf had an ominous feeling. He felt that he had offended someone he shouldn't have. It's better not to say some things. Otherwise you might lose your life. Yun Jian curled her lips and said with a faint smile. Old Master Mu and the rest of the Mu family behind him didn't know that Lone Wolf was a member of the kosher mercenaries. They only knew that Lone Wolf was the 9th assassin on the international assassin list. At the same time, the only thing Old Master Mu knew was that Lone Wolf must have an organization. And Yun Jian's words? Was she talking about Lone Wolf's organization? And Yun Jian's words meant? Old Master Mu's eyes suddenly widened. He looked at Yun Jian, who was standing in front of him and the rest of the Mu family, and looking at Lone Wolf's group of assassins in disbelief. Was she the one who had control of Lone Wolf's organization? No. That was impossible. How old was she? If it was her, she wouldn't have been able to go to the military academy. Grandpa Mu shook his head again and dismissed his unrealistic imagination. After hearing Yun Jian's words, Lone Wolf pondered deeply. He had already guessed what Yun Jian's words meant. Could it be that she was? However, Yun Jian interrupted Lone Wolf's you. Her following words made Lone Wolf completely abandon his desire to stand out. She is. Seeing that Lone Wolf's expression did not change, but a trace of fear flashed across his eyes, Yun Jian only smiled slightly. Lone Wolf was indeed a member of the kosher mercenaries. With a slight smile, Yun Jian looked at Lone Wolf and suddenly changed her tone. She asked him in fluent Hindi, "How is the organization doing recently?" When Lone Wolf heard that Yun Jian was deliberately talking to him in a foreign language, his eyes flickered. He was stunned for a moment before he came back to his senses. He glanced at Yun Jian and then spoke in the same fluent Hindi. "The organization is doing well." "Aha." Yun Jian nodded and then said in Hindi, "When you go back, ask Mad Dragon to wait for us in the Amazon forest." When Yun Jian said this, Lone Wolf was stunned again. Chapter 1383. Rather than saying that Lone Wolf had obediently left with a group of high-level hitmen, it was more like Lone Wolf and the group of high-level hitmen had disappeared as quickly as they could, as if they had encountered something terrifying. For a moment, the surroundings fell into silence again. It was eerily quiet. The people around were all dumbfounded. They all stared at Yun Jian and opened their mouths, but no words came out. Those few high-level hitmen in addition to their leader Lone Wolf. Lone Wolf was ranked 9th on the international hitman rankings. Just because of a few words that Yun Jian said, did they run away with their tails between their legs? In the end, it was Old Master Mu who broke the silence. Even Old Master Mu, who was used to seeing all kinds of strange things, was stuttering in disbelief. "They won't come back. You can sleep peacefully." Yun Jian yawned slightly, then turned around and waved at Mu Ying and Mu Shuang, intending to go upstairs to sleep. Old Master Mu and the rest of the Mu family, who were facing the threat of being wiped out, stared blankly at Yun Jian as she waved at Mu Ying and Mu Shuang to go upstairs. When Yun Jian, Mu Ying and Mu Shuang's figures disappeared from sight, Old Master Mu and the rest of the Mu family swallowed a mouthful of saliva. "Grandpa, who the hell is she? And are those hitmen really not coming back? Should we leave? Otherwise, what if they come back? You can't take what she said seriously." Mu Rue still didn't believe Yun Jian's words. However, Mu Rue was interrupted by Old Master Mu before he could finish his sentence. "Seeing is believing. The truth is right in front of us. You better calm down. You have to give in to her when you see her in the future. Don't blame me for not reminding you. If it wasn't because of something special about her, those hitmen would never have left. That's Lone Wolf, ranked 9th on the international hitmen list. Do you think this is a joke? It's not that grandfather is exaggerating. If it wasn't for her today, our Mu clan without Xuanshu would definitely not be able to escape the calamity of being exterminated. So, all of you better remember this clearly. From today onwards, she is our family's great benefactor." Grandpa Mu gritted his teeth and said each word solemnly. The she here was naturally referring to Yun Jian. Everyone in the Mu family responded, but in fact, everyone was amazed by Yun Jian's previous actions. The night passed uneventfully. However, as the eldest son of the Mu family, Old Master Mu's eldest son, Mu Feng, couldn't sleep the entire night. Because his wife and daughter had gone missing. Even the rest of the Mu family didn't have a good night's sleep. One by one they ran out to look for her. It was not until 4:45 a.m., when the sun had already risen from the east, that they found Madame Yang and Mu Ro in a small forest not far from the Mu residence. When they found them, Madame Yang and Mu Ro were still unconscious, but their clothes were nowhere to be found. Moreover, there were traces of being molested all over their bodies. Anyone with a discerning eye could tell what had happened with a single glance. The two of them only had a piece of clothing covering their bodies, but it couldn't cover their shame. At this moment, Yun Jian was sitting in Mu Ying's bedroom, fanning herself with a huge electric fan. Mu Shuang and Mu Ying were playing poker with Yun Jian. No. No. Who did it? Who did it? No. Sitting in Mu Ying's bedroom, she could hear Mu Feng's heart-wrenching screams coming from downstairs. His daughter and wife were both. If Mu Feng could still keep his composure at this time, it would be illogical. Yun Jian reached out and gently caressed her ears. Then she looked up at the huge clock hanging on Mu Ying's bed. The clock's minute hand was pointing at 6:30 a.m. She got up and told Mu Ying and Mu Shuang, "It's 6:30 a.m. I should go." Then Yun Jian turned to tell Mu Ying, "See you tomorrow in Longmen City." Both of them would depart for the Amazon forest tomorrow. Okay. Mu Ying nodded at Yun Jian. Chapter 1384. At 7 in the morning, Yun Jian prepared her luggage and left the Mu residence to return to Longmen City. Just as she was about to head downstairs, Yun Jian's phone rang. Yun Jian's eyes flickered as she took out her phone to check, only to see a caller ID glaring on the screen. "My dearest hubby, mobile phones in 1999 did not have the functions of modern smartphones. Mobile phones back then were similar to old-age phones now, but the picture quality was much worse than old-age phones now, and they were usually black and white. Although it was called a black and white screen, the black color did not look like normal black." Yun Jian's gaze shifted slightly when she saw the caller ID. Mobile phones back then were not as good as they were now, but they could already be used as a caller ID. It was CE who added the caller ID and did not allow her to change it. He had actually secretly told her something before he left. He said that if she changed the caller ID, he would kiss her the next time he saw her. He even said that he would cough. Just as Yun Jian thought about it, Mu Shuang hopped down from the bed and went to Yun Jian. As she hopped down, Mu Shuang asked with a chuckle, "Jie, who called you?" As she spoke, Mu Shuang went to Yun Jian and peeked at the phone in Yun Jian's hand. 6 words were written on it: "My dearest hubby, Jie, are you in a relationship?" Mu Shuang straightened in shock. Girls in the past did not date so openly like now. Dating was no longer a rare thing now. However, it was rare for people in the past to be in a relationship. Of course, at that time, girls also dated, but at that time, teenagers didn't date as openly as they did now. "I'm married." Yun Jian's words were shocking. Bang. Just as Yun Jian finished, Mu Ying flipped off the bed. Mu Ying stood up without even a grunt of pain. She stared at Yun Jian blankly, not caring that she had accidentally flipped off the bed and landed on the floor, causing a bump to swell up. "You're married? Really?" Mu Ying looked at Yun Jian with a rare look of surprise. She had thought that Yun Jian would be a loner like her, living in the same environment as when she was young. She might even live alone for the rest of her life. Mu Ying did not expect Yun Jian to be married. "Country R's marriage certificate." "I'm married," Yun Jian answered the call after that, leaving Mu Ying and Mu Shuang in shock. Siyi's rich male voice rang from the other end of the phone. "Xiao Jian." Siyi's voice was indescribably seductive. It was the kind of feeling that just by listening to his voice, one would feel that he was indescribably handsome. Hearing this, Mu Shuang's eyes lit up. Of course, it wasn't out of envy or jealousy, but out of pure curiosity. Yun Jian replied softly. Her soft voice made Ce have the urge to drop whatever he was doing and run over to press her down on the bed. "You're going to the Amazon?" Ce asked dully. Chapter 1385. Mu Shuang loved the feeling of pairing someone as perfect as Yun Jian with a man who was equally perfect. She did not say a word, but her hands were already clasped together like she was a witness who was about to witness the birth of a perfect couple. For some reason, Yun Jian detected a hint of hostility in Ce's words when she heard Ce's words. It was the kind of strong and possessive smell of gunpowder. It was similar to the gunpowder left behind from a rocket launcher she used to play with. "You don't have to come since you're so busy," Yun Jian said in the next second after pressing her lips together. Just as Yun Jian said that, Ce's muffled voice came from the other end. "Xiao Jin, you're being naughty again when I'm not around these few days? I'll teach you a lesson when I get back." The word, "take care of," didn't sound like a normal way of taking care of someone. It sounded more like the tone of a couple flirting. There was also a sense of longing that made one's imagination run wild. Mu Shuang grabbed a pillow and buried her head in it when she heard that. She did not hear what Ce said to Yun Jian. She was still young, she did not want to get a needle's eye. Yun Jian's cheeks were obviously flushed. After the silence, she continued, "I'm going back to Longmen City now. Talk to you later." "Okay," Ce replied with a muffled reply. Yun Jian's cheeks were slightly flushed. This made Mu Ying a little surprised. It was obvious that Ce was not satisfied on the other end. When Yun Jian was about to hang up, she suddenly told Ce, "I'll wait for you to come back." After that, she hung up the phone and stood up. Wow, sister and sister's husband have such a good relationship. Mu Shuang, who had buried her head in the pillow, raised her head and clapped, blinking her eyes mischievously. Yun Jian didn't have the strength to defend herself at all. Yun Jian blushed and then said to Mu Ying and Mu Shuang, "I'm leaving first." Then she picked up her school bag and walked out of the door. Hee, sister is blushing. After Yun Jian left, Mu Shuang smiled at Mu Ying. Yun Jian did not hear what she said. The bus ride from Min City to Longmen City took about an hour or two. It had been a month since she returned to Longmen City. When Yun Jian arrived, it was just past 9 in the evening. Qin Yiru was still at work. Qin Yiru had quit her job for a while and had been a housewife at home for a long time. However, she suddenly felt that there was no social zone to be a housewife at home. If one did not go out, one would not know the outside world at all. In addition, she stayed at home and her children had gone to school. Although she would go out to train, she did not know many people and had nowhere to go. Although Mrs. Yang and Qin Yiru got along quite well previously, it was unrealistic for her to be with Mrs. Yang all the time. Considering her social circle, Qin Yiru went to look for another job. This time, Qin Yiru found a job as a florist. A monthly salary of 800 yuan was considered pretty good for a florist in 1999. It was not like being a floor sweeper in Yun Jian's new cruise. Most importantly, it was quite relaxing to be a florist, so Qin Yiru was working in the florist now. The florist's employees were mostly middle-aged women in their 30s or 40s. It was the biggest florist in Longmen City and occupied a large area. Qin Yiru was chatting with a woman of her age who was arranging flowers. This woman, who was the same age as her, came from a decent family. Like her, she was also looking for a social circle. However, the difference was that the woman was dressed rather fashionably while Qin Yiru was dressed in street clothes. The woman did not know about Qin Yiru's family background. The woman was Lu Shan, a local. She had a son who was in his second year of high school. When parents stood together, it was inevitable that they would talk about their children. It was the same for Lu Shan. "Yiru, I heard that your child just finished his middle school exams. Which high school did your child get into in Longmen City?" Lu Shan looked at Qin Yiru and asked with confidence. Parents in Longmen City liked to speak with results. Whoever's child got into a good high school would have a bright future ahead of them. Those who did not have good results or could not get into a good high school would be seen as mediocre for the rest of their lives, the scum of society. "My daughter got into Min City's military school," Qin Yiru said with a smile. "What? A girl got into a military school? Yiru, you're just fooling around with your daughter? Shouldn't a girl get into a good high school and find a stable job after graduation and marry into a good family? What's your daughter thinking? Why aren't you persuading her?" When Lu Shan heard this, she was surprised for a moment, and then a series of words came out. "I'm the one who wants to get into a military school. My mom has never objected to me choosing the path I like." A pretty female voice came from outside the door. Yun Jian was seen walking in with her backpack. She spoke faintly, her pretty face drawing gasps of admiration from the shop's employees. It was only when she came to Lu Shan that Yun Jian smiled faintly and said softly, "One has to pursue one's dreams. If one blindly chooses to do things one doesn't want to do, there will be more beggars begging on the streets." Lu Shan was the kind of person who judged a child's success based on their results. Under her education, her son was finally admitted to the worst school in the normal high school, but she was very proud of it. She was proud because there were many children from other families who could only get into vocational high schools. However, Lu Shan's face froze when she heard what Yun Jian said. Chapter 1386. "Mom, what time do you get off work?" While Lu Shan's expression stiffened, Yun Jian had already come to Qin Yiru and asked her softly. "It's 10:30. There's still an hour and a half to go. Shall Jian go home first? I'll make lunch for you later." Qin Yiru said as she went to Yun Jian with a bouquet of untrimmed flowers. She put the flowers down and circled around Yun Jian before Qin Yiru commented with a frown, "You didn't get tanner from the military training this month, but you've gotten thinner. I'll buy more meat for you to nourish your body today." Qin Yiru said worriedly. Her daughter was already skinny, but after a month of military training, she had gotten even thinner. Qin Yiru's heart ached for her daughter. "Mom, I didn't lose weight. I weighed myself when I came back and I gained a catty," Yun Jian said as she rubbed Qin Yiru's slightly rough hand. In fact, Yun Jian had really gained weight. Height and weight were measured at the beginning and end of military training. Qin Yiru thought that Yun Jian had gotten thinner, but this was only Qin Yiru's opinion as a mother. She thought that it was impossible for Yun Jian not to lose weight after going to the military school for a month. You're still too skinny. You have to nourish your body. Qin Yiru said as she held Yun Jian's hand and patted the back of Yun Jian's hand. Yun Jian and Qin Yiru were talking and neglected Lu Shan. This made Lu Shan even more displeased. How can there be a month of military training? Isn't it usually 7 days? Lu Shan asked Qin Yiru and glared at Yun Jian as she spoke. My daughter is studying in the military school. The military school's military training lasts a month, Qin Yiru explained to Lu Shan with a smile as she patted Yun Jian's hand. The manager of the florist came in from the front door. The manager of the flower shop was quite young. She was only in her 30s. It was said that the manager, the woman named Wen Min, had opened the shop when she was in her 20s. It had been more than a decade since she opened it, growing from a small florist shop to the biggest one in Longmen City. Wen Min was no doubt a capable person. Wen Min came in from outside and went to Qin Yiru to tell Qin Yiru and Lu Shan. Don't be in a hurry to leave after work. I'll treat all the employees to lunch at the restaurant nearby. If you have family members at home who need you to go home to cook lunch, you can call your family members over for lunch. Wen Min was a very gracious manager. Considering that many of the employees in the store needed to rush home to cook lunch for their children or husbands, she simply asked the employees in the store to call their families over for lunch. Wen Min was surprised to see Yun Jian before she turned to ask Qin Yiru, "Is this your daughter? She's really pretty. Remember to bring her over for lunch later." Wen Min said and left after exchanging a few pleasantries with Qin Yiru. Qin Yiru did not refuse. Since the manager had said so, Qin Yiru could only tell Yun Jian, "Xiao Jian, go sit on the bench over there for a while. Come have lunch with me later." There was no one at home since the children were in school, so Qin Yiru told Yun Jian. Yun Jian went to sit on the bench after listening to Qin Yiru and took out the weapons books Mu Ying gave her to read from her bag. Although she already knew all these weapons like the back of her hand, she had used all of them before. Whether it was planes, tanks, or cannons. The introduction in the books was more comprehensive and the author of each book had a different introduction to the weapons. Just as she was engrossed in the books, a sarcastic voice rang beside her. Yo, you're still reading? What are you reading? What? World's famous guns? You're a girl, can you understand this kind of book? It was Lu Shan. Lu Shan had thought that she did not have a sense of presence in front of Yun Jian just now, so she had come over to teach her a lesson, so she spoke in a sarcastic tone. She had thought that Yun Jian was reading books related to studying and that Yun Jian's grades were poor, so she wanted to come over and ask if Yun Jian's grades were worthy of the word reading. She did not expect Yun Jian to be reading books related to weapons. Just as Lu Shan spoke, something that shocked her even more rang out. Yun Jian answered faintly, I can understand it. It's just that it's different from actually using it. The author of this book doesn't know enough about guns. As soon as he said this, Lu Shan immediately exclaimed, From what you're saying, could it be that you've actually operated these guns? She frowned and suddenly raised her voice. Her shout frightened Lu Shan's daughter, little Yuan Yuan, so much so that she trembled and burst into tears. This bag was the one that Qin Yiru had bought for her. When Qin Yiru saw this, she was about to go up and help Lu Shan's daughter, little Yuan Yuan, pick up her bag when she was stopped by Yun Jian. I was just about to test the power of these knives. Are you guys trying to challenge my limits? Yun Jian said casually, but the words that came out of her mouth made one's hair stand on end. I'll pick it up, I'll pick it up. Lu Shan was shocked. She was afraid that Yun Jian would really do something to her daughter, so she quickly squatted down to pick up the knives one by one and put them back into the bag. Lu Shan was picking up the knives, but her attention was still on Yun Jian. Qin Yiru went to Yun Jian worriedly. Qin Yiru asked Yun Jian worriedly, Xiao Jian, 2 or 3 knives are enough. Why did you bring so many? Hearing Qin Yiru's question, the employees around them, including the florist manager, Wen Min, were stunned. What did she mean by, 2 or 3 knives are enough? Was this how she, as a mother, should educate her child? In spite of it, what came next shocked them even more. Yun Jian's red lips curled up as she told Qin Yiru with a smile, My friend collected these 21 butterfly knives and gave them to me. What kind of friend had such a hobby? Collecting butterfly knives as gifts. At the dining table, a large group of people immediately started chatting. After a while, the topic turned to the children's studies. Lu Shan was still holding a grudge. At this moment, she could not wait to present Yun Jian's poor studies in front of everyone. Of course, it was Lu Shan's own opinion that Yun Jian was poor in her studies. After all, why would a girl who was good in her studies go to a military school? Of course, her results were good when she got into a military school, but Lu Shan remembered Qin Yiru saying that Yun Jian was the default candidate for the military school. If that was the case, Yun Jian's results must be poor. My son's school is number 3 high school. He didn't do well in the middle school entrance exam, but he still got into a regular high school, Lu Shan boasted proudly before turning to ask Qin Yiru. Yiru, your daughter got into a military school. Her results should be okay, right? How's her middle school entrance exam results? Lu Shan asked. However, she thought to herself, how good can her results be if she was sent there by default? Adults at this age like to talk about their children's results. If they were good in their studies, it meant that they had a bright future ahead of them. They did not know that they were extremely stupid. My results are average. Yun Jian did not let Qin Yiru continue the conversation and answered calmly. Lu Shan's smile widened when she heard that. However, before Lu Shan's smile could widen, Yun Jian's words were heard in the next second, startling every parent present. Chapter 1390. It was just an accident. When Lu Shan first heard Yun Jian say this, she thought that Yun Jian would say an unbearably low result, so she was already pressing her lips together, ready to laugh out loud after Yun Jian announced her results. However, Yun Jian said, I was just an accident and got first place in the city? First place in the city? First place in Longmen City? This result was just an accident? Lu Shan was stunned. She maintained her posture of moving her chopsticks to pick up a piece of pork trotter. She was stunned on the spot. Oh my God! First place in the city? Yiru, your daughter got first place in the city? Before Lu Shan could recover from her shock, a woman who was also a florist stood up and exclaimed at Qin Yiru. Yiru, you said that your daughter got first place in the city? Why didn't you mention it? There's more. Your daughter is so good in her studies, why did you let her go to the military school? Why didn't you let her apply for DE High School? Our DE High School's cutoff is so high, but your daughter can do it. Can your daughter get in? She's the first in the city. Someone stood up and told Qin Yiru immediately. DE High School was a key public high school in Longmen City. The cutoff was very high and it was also the best high school in Longmen City. This was just the objective aspect. In general, the students who graduated from DE High School were the most promising students in the eyes of their parents. Yunyi was a student of DE High School. Therefore, when the people present heard that Yun Jian's cutoff was so high, their first thought was, why didn't she apply for DE High School with such good results? No one noticed that Lu Shan's face was paling bit by bit. She looked so ashamed that she was speechless. My Jian wants to go to the military school. She's quite talented, so I support her to choose what she wants to do. Qin Yiru chuckled with a hand over her mouth in response to the crowd. Qin Yiru was very low-key and humble. She was very kind to others and was not vain. Although she had such an excellent daughter, she never bragged about it. To be able to do this, it had to be said that people like Qin Yiru were very rare. The surrounding women sighed. Everyone felt that it was a pity that Yun Jian didn't go to the first high school with her grades. Lu Shan, who was a little ashamed just now, suddenly raised her head. That was right. Even if Yun Jian had gotten first place before, she was still the former top student of Longmen City. She was stupid to have chosen the military school. That was all in the past. Lu Shan instantly raised her head to look at Yun Jian. Then she said to Yun Jian with a bit of confidence, you're a girl and you're going to the bottom of the military academy. You're not willing to go to a key high school to further your studies. Isn't that stupid? Lu Shan's words made Yun Jian raise her eyebrows. At the bottom? Chapter 1391. What Yun Jian said stunned everyone present. First of all, Yun Jian had won first place in the military training? No one present was surprised that the military school would rank students for their military training. What they did not expect, however, was that Yun Jian had won first place in the military training. Moreover, the women present were mostly parents. To them, their children's studies were the most important. In Longmen City, being able to get into DE High School was akin to being the top scorer in ancient times to many parents. Yet, Yun Jian said that her brother had represented DE High School in the language competition and won first place in the province? For the time being, let's not talk about winning the provincial first prize, which was enough to shock people to the core. Based on the first part of the sentence, was Yun Jian's brother not Qin Yiru's son? Qin Yiru had a son and her son had gotten into DE High School. Her daughter was so outstanding that she had won first place among the freshmen when she had just entered the school. Oh, Yiru, your son and daughter are so outstanding. Even the store manager, Wen Min, stood up in shock as she looked at Qin Yiru and exclaimed in bewilderment. Qin Yuru did not expect Yun Jian to blurt everything out. She was taken aback as well, only coming back to her senses after a while. My Xiao Jian and Xiao Yi are only this good. As a mother, I'm quite happy, Qin Yuru said with a smile. Exactly. If I had a daughter and son as good as you, I'd be over the moon. Speaking of this, I'm pissed off when I think of my disappointing son. Wen Min chimed in as well, but she was smiling at Yun Jian and Qin Yuru the entire time. There was a tinge of helplessness in her tone, but it was more genuine than anything else. Qin Yuru soon struck up a friendly conversation with the other employees in the store. Knowing that Qin Yuru's son and daughter were so outstanding, many of them took the initiative to befriend Qin Yuru. People were all like that. It wasn't surprising that they would follow whoever was outstanding. However, Yun Jian had achieved her goal. She wanted Qin Yuru to have a better life in the flower shop and make more friends. Of course, Qin Yuru's original intention of working in the flower shop was to make more friends. Lu Shan recovered from her shock. Although she was unwilling, she couldn't say anything at this moment. She could only stare blankly. In the end, Lu Shan was so angry that she nearly vomited blood. It was because his son had failed to live up to his expectations and kept staring at Yun Jian as if he was completely infatuated with her. So you're studying at Min City's military academy? I'm studying in 3rd high school. You're welcome to hang out with me. Ning Sheng stared straight at Yun Jian as he invited her. Ning Sheng had snuck out of school to go on a date with his girlfriend. However, ever since he saw Yun Jian, his heart had been hooked by Yun Jian. He even chased her all the way here and shamelessly sat down at her table. Yun Jian ignored him. At this moment, a woman at the same table pointed at the door and exclaimed, "Wow, what a handsome young man." Just as the woman finished, Yun Jian turned to look and met a pair of sharp dark eyes that were as sharp as an eagle's. The man made his way over after meeting Yun Jian's gaze. Every movement he made as he made his way over was so cool that it was enough to make all the women in the room squeal in delight. Whose family is this young man from? He's so handsome. Another woman exclaimed. Chapter 1392. He was the only one who could accompany her, no matter where it was. Ce stared fixedly at Yun Jian as if he wanted to bore a hole through Yun Jian. Yun Jian was a little embarrassed by Ce's words. Besides, there were so many people around. She lowered her head out of shyness when Ce grabbed her hand. Qin Yuru, who was sitting beside Yun Jian, covered her mouth and laughed silently. Qin Yuru was about to speak when Ning Sheng, who was sitting opposite Yun Jian and had been staring at Yun Jian, looked at Ce in disbelief. Then he asked Yun Jian, "Who is he?" It was as if they were denouncing Yun Jian for her crimes. Yun Jian heard Ning Sheng's words and reached out to grab Ce's large hand. Then she replied softly, She considered that Ce was too busy, so she didn't ask Ce to accompany her to the Amazon forest. She also asked Mad Dragon to go with her because Mad Dragon was also an assassin from Minhan. There were 3 assassins who had survived with Yun Jian from Minhan. Besides Yun Jian, Mad Dragon was one of them. Mad Dragon was also there when she was sent to the organization, so Mad Dragon knew Mu Ying. Yun Jian knew that Mad Dragon and Mu Ying had some feelings for each other when they were young. Although they were not even 10 years old at that time, Mad Dragon and Mu Ying liked each other. When Mu Ying died in place of Yun Jian, Mad Dragon was tricked out by a group of children in the organization. That was why Mad Dragon only found out about Mu Ying's death. At that time, Kuang Long was on the brink of insanity. The only thing Yun Jian knew after that was that Kuang Long killed all the people who tricked him out. Yun Jian asked Mad Dragon to wait for them in the Amazon forest because she wanted Mu Ying and Mad Dragon to meet. She didn't know that Ce would be so jealous that he sent Mad Dragon away. What Amazon forest? Speaking of which, Yuru, why is your daughter being intimate with an outsider in front of you? You have to keep a close eye on such an outstanding daughter. Don't let some riffraff kidnap her. Lu Shan had spoken with the intention of competing with Yun Jian, but now that she saw how outstanding Yun Jian was and that her son, Ning Sheng, was interested in Yun Jian, Lu Shan wanted her son to marry such an outstanding daughter. She might be jealous, but she would be part of her family once they married her. Lu Shan was shameless. She had treated Yun Jian this way in the beginning, but when she saw that Yun Jian was good-looking, capable, and had a brother who studied in DE High School, Lu Shan thought to herself. That was how Lu Shan thought of it. She should take a look at how her son looked like. Lu Shan thought that Qin Yuru would reign in Yun Jian and the man's entanglement, but Qin Yuru ignored her and stood up to speak to Ce. Hey, you're back? Come sit beside Xiao Jian. I'll find another seat. Chapter 1393. In Qin Yuru's heart, she had long treated Ce as family. To Qin Yuru, Ce was family. Therefore, Qin Yiru did not react when Lu Shan said that Yun Jian was messing around with an outsider. When she heard Qin Yiru say that Ce was her chosen son-in-law and that Ce was family, Lu Shan nearly vomited blood in anger. Lu Shan thought that Qin Yiru would realize that her daughter was messing around with a man after what she said just now. Who knew that she would say, "Yiru, are you serious? Your daughter is still so young and she already has a chosen son-in-law?" Wen Min asked in disbelief, taking a few more glances at Ce. Ce was handsome. His fair complexion coupled with his murderous eyes made it impossible for anyone to ignore his presence. That was all it took to describe his handsomeness. Wen Min asked out of pure curiosity. Since she had asked this, Wen Min couldn't help but ask another question. Of course, her tone was still mixed with the weight of a joke. "Ah, don't tell me that you've arranged a marriage for your daughter?" Wen Min's words sparked a conversation between everyone and Qin Yiru. Qin Yiru chuckled with a hand over her mouth and replied to Wen Min, "Of course not. I advocate for children to love freely. Look, my Xiao Jian and Ai are interested in each other. I can't stop them from being together, can I? Ai's a rare good kid." Qin Yiru was not an extremely old-fashioned person. To her, it was fine as long as Yun Jian was happy. Lu Shan was about to vomit blood when she heard what Qin Yiru said at the end. Lu Shan had never expected Qin Yiru to be so optimistic about her daughter's relationship. She was still thinking of having her son abduct such an outstanding daughter from Qin Yiru's family. Ce had already taken the seat that Qin Yiru vacated for him. When he turned to look, he could already tell what Lu Shan, the old hag, was up to. Since he came in, he could feel Ning Xing's gaze sizing up his Xiao Jian as if his life depended on it. Ce did not let go of Yun Jian's hand even after he took his seat. His other hand reached into his trouser pocket to take out a large booklet and placed it on the round table before spinning the turntable to move it to Qin Yiru. "This is my marriage certificate with Xiao Jian. It's registered in country. We're real." He and Xiao Jian were real now, they were real, so he did not mind letting more people know about it. Ce said as he turned the booklet to Qin Yiru. No one expected Ce to do this, so everyone stopped what they were doing when they heard Ce's mellow voice. "This is..." Lu Shan was stunned. She thought that Ce and Yun Jian were just a couple and did not expect Ce to take out his marriage certificate. "You, aren't you still underage?" "This..." Lu Shan did not even realize that there was a marriage certificate in country R. She only knew that Yun Jian and Ce were married. "It's a marriage certificate in country R. Xiao Jian and I are husband and wife now, so we're protected by the law," Ce cut Lu Shan off, speaking to Qin Yiru. Everyone thought that Qin Yiru would scold Yun Jian and Ce. After all, it was one thing to admit that Yun Jian and Ce were together, but it was another thing to register their marriage as it was protected by the law. Who would have thought that Qin Yiru would clap her hands excitedly? She opened her mouth openly and shamelessly under everyone's gaze, saying, "Great! We've even registered our marriage. Hey, you're amazing. It'll be legal and reasonable for Xiao Jian to give birth to a grandson or granddaughter soon." Chapter 1394. Qin Yiru accidentally blurted out her true thoughts. Once Qin Yiru said it, Yun Jian's cheeks flushed instantly. Lu Shan's face darkened at the same time. Ning Xing froze on the spot, looking at Yun Jian and Ce in disbelief. She was married? She was married. Did that mean he had no chance? Ning Xing did not even think about what kind of person he was and whether he was worthy of Yun Jian. Most importantly, Ning Xing had a girlfriend of his own. His girlfriend must have left in a fit of anger at him for standing her up. While everyone was stunned, Ce raised a brow with a slight smirk and uttered words that made everyone's imagination run wild in the next second. "I'll work hard." It was a continuation of what Qin Yiru said earlier. Once he heard Ce's half-understood words, Ning Xing's face darkened as if he had just eaten dog poop. Lu Shan's face darkened as well. "Jian, we're here." Just as Yun Jian's head was about to hit the floor in embarrassment, 3 people walked into the restaurant. The person who led the way to greet Yun Jian was Qin Sinny. Qin Sinny shook her head at Yun Jian and ran over to grab Yun Jian's other free hand, telling her, "Yun Jian, I'm not going anywhere." "Jian, you're back? When you said you were here just now, I dragged Zhang Xiaofeng and Ling Yichen over to look for you. They even said they wanted ice cream before coming over." I directly threw away the ice cream in their hands. "Don't you think I'm amazing?" Qin Sinny knew that Yun Jian was coming back today, so she asked Yun Jian where she was on the phone just now. When she found out that Yun Jian was at the restaurant, Qin Sinny happened to be nearby, so she dragged Zhang Xiaofeng and Ling Yichen over. After graduating from junior high school, everyone was admitted to different high schools. Chen Sini and her friends were still studying in Longmen City, but Yun Jian had gone to Min City. Chen Sini and her friends had just finished their military training, so they were on break now that it was school time. Yun Jian snapped out of her shyness and looked up to meet Chen Sini's gaze that said, "Praise me, praise me." "You're tanned?" Yun Jian commented quietly as she glanced at Chen Sini and her friends. "Oh, it's Sini. Are you guys playing around here too? It's been a while since I saw you. Come visit me when you're free." Qin Yuru greeted Chen Sini when she saw her. In spite of it, Chen Sini and her friends were rooted to the spot by Yun Jian's casual remark. "Aya Jian, don't be so direct." Chen Sini covered her face in disbelief. The group of people around them were attracted by Yun Jian and Chen Sini's interaction. Lu Shan and Ning Sheng looked over as well. "Oh right, Jian, I heard that there are 3 people from your military school who entered the elite class directly. You're one of them. Hey, what's the benefit of entering the elite class?" Chen Sini and her friends paid close attention to anything that happened in the military school because Yun Jian had gone to the military school. The news of Yun Jian successfully passing the military training's wilderness survival event and entering the elite class had spread like wildfire. It was not surprising that Chen Sini and her friends knew about it. Yun Jian raised a brow and turned to see Zhang Xiaofeng and Ling Yichen looking at her with anticipation. She smiled and said, "Entering the elite class means there's a chance to join the hunting school as Country Z's special forces." Yun Jian then narrowed her eyes and added, "I have to go to the hunting school." "Hunting school? What the hell is that place?" Lu Shan asked with a sullen face after hearing that. It was the kind of careless words. Just as Lu Shan finished her question, the people around them turned to look at Yun Jian in confusion. "Hunting school? Hunting? A school to catch wild animals? Why was there such a school? What kind of school was this? Why did Yun Jian have to go? To learn how to catch wild animals?" Everyone present was slightly stunned. "Master, is the hunting school you're talking about located in South America? Is it the world-famous Special Forces training base? It said that the elimination rate is as high as 80% and the death rate is extremely high. It's known as the true Special Forces Devil Training. Master, are you talking about that school?" Zhang Xiaofeng was stunned for a moment before asking Yun Jian. Just as Zhang Xiaofeng finished his question, everyone present was stunned. Most of the people present were dutiful residents. They often talked about their children's academic results, who had a higher salary, or who married into a good family. They thought that the hunting school Yun Jian mentioned was just an ordinary school. However, no one would have thought that the hunting school Yun Jian mentioned was actually the Special Forces training base, and the death rate was extremely high. Just as they were shocked, they heard Yun Jian admit, "Yeah." This meant that the hunting school Yun Jian had to go to was the Special Forces training base with an extremely high death rate? Everyone present was dumbfounded. Lu Shan and Ning Sheng originally thought that Yun Jian applied for the military school to become a policewoman. However, no one would have thought that Yun Jian actually wanted to go to such a dangerous place to train. Chapter 1395. Special Forces Training Base? The elimination rate is as high as 80%? The death rate is extremely high? You'll die? Are you kidding me? You're going to a place like that? You're a girl. Lu Shan could not help exclaiming again when she heard what Zhang Xiaofeng and Yun Jian said. You're going to a place like that? What if you die? What if you die? Ning Sheng couldn't help but cry out in alarm. When he mentioned death, Ning Sheng's body trembled. He was obviously frightened. Xiaojian, you're going to a place like that? Will you really die? It's such a dangerous place. Mom won't let you go. The people around them exclaimed, but they calmed down quickly. Qin Yuru was different. Yun Jian was her daughter. Therefore, when Qin Yuru heard Yun Jian say that she was going to such a dangerous place, she stood up from the bench right away. "Die. I'd really like to meet the person who can kill me in this world." Yun Jian chuckled softly. Her words were quite arrogant, and there was a sense of arrogance in them. In spite of it, others thought that Yun Jian was extremely foolish. Pfft. Lu Shan laughed out loud. She could not hold it in as she laughed out loud when she heard Yun Jian's arrogant words. After that, Lu Shan's lips twitched before she forced herself to hold back her laughter. Forgetting herself, she told Yun Jian again. "Do you think you're a god? Do you really think you're in heaven? Haha, you'd really like to meet the person who can kill you in this world." "You're kidding me?" Qin Yuru was already worried about her daughter. Now that she heard what Lu Shan said, she was even more worried. "Xiaojian, you can't go. How can there be a guarantee?" Qin Yuru was genuinely worried and scared. The proudest thing in her life was having a daughter and a son. Both of them were equally important. Therefore, to Qin Yiru, nothing was more important than the safety of her daughter and son. Mom, I've never done anything stupid that would cost my life, and I've never boasted about myself. Yun Jian said to Qin Yiru solemnly, the existence that can threaten me has not been born yet. With me here, Xiao Jin will be fine no matter where she goes. Siyi's words rang out just as Yun Jian was explaining to Qin Yiru. Qin Yiru was stunned. Just as she was about to refute Siyi, she heard Siyi continue. It's just a hunting school. I guarantee that if Xiao Jin really loses a strand of hair in the school, I'll blow it up. Moreover, if anything happens to Xiao Jin, I'll be there to shield her. Even if someone dies, I'll be the first to die. Siyi told Qin Yiru with a serious look at Yun Jian. What he said was from the bottom of his heart, and everyone present could hear it. Siyi's words touched Qin Yiru. She was right to find this son-in-law. Lu Shan, on the other hand, was displeased. After she heard what Siyi said, she retorted at Siyi, blow it up? Do you think you're an armed force? Playing with gunpowder? Before Lu Shan could finish, Siyi had already dialed Shui Ying's number and spoke to the latter right in front of everyone. I'm sorry. Find the shortest and fattest lady who works in the same shop as my mother-in-law in Country Z. Send a fighter jet to bomb her. Everyone was dumbfounded when Siyi finished. What? Chapter 1396. Lu Shan thought that Siyi was just joking. She did not expect that Siyi was telling the truth. And Siyi said it so openly. She was the shortest and fattest woman in the shop? Women love to be beautiful, regardless of their age. Lu Shan was the same. Therefore, when she heard Siyi say that she was the shortest and fattest woman in the shop, Lu Shan was stunned. When Lu Shan came back to her senses, the first thing that came to her mind was not that Siyi wanted to bomb her house, but Siyi actually said that she was the shortest and fattest woman in the shop. Lu Shan was stunned. She was so shocked that she couldn't even speak. The rest of them were the first to react to what Siyi said. Young man, don't tell me you're serious? Wen Min was shocked because Siyi did not seem to be lying when he spoke. Child, don't mess around. Qin Yiru had heard about Siyi's family background from Dong Ruan and knew that Siyi came from an extraordinary family. Therefore, Qin Yiru knew that Siyi was telling the truth. When Lu Shan recovered from her anger, she still did not believe Siyi. She even lectured Qin Yiru. Oh Yiru, is this the kind of son-in-law you want? Bombing with fighter jets? Aha, do you think I'm stupid? Do you think I don't know anything? As Lu Shan spoke, Siyi's phone rang again. In spite of it, Siyi pressed the answer button. Snow Eagle's voice came from the other end. Young master, the fighter jets haven't arrived yet. I've locked onto the target floor with missiles. Should we bomb it across the sea? An Hun group's influence was comparable to a country. This wasn't nonsense. As soon as he said that, everyone present was dumbfounded. The other party actually called Siyi a young master? It felt like it was real. No, this is real. Lu Shan was completely stunned. She stared blankly at Siyi, feeling as though she was in a complete daze. Don't. Qin Yiru cried out in alarm. In the past, they could still use their own power to cover up small conflicts. However, if Siyi really ordered the Snow Eagle to launch a missile attack on Lu Shan's family, this was no laughing matter. It involved the country. Lu Shan was really frightened. She looked at Siyi in a daze. She was really afraid that Siyi was telling the truth. The next second, Lu Shan opened her mouth and begged for mercy. Don't. I was wrong. My mouth is cheap. Regardless of whether it was true or not, Lu Shan couldn't bear the blow of this possibility. There's no need to launch the missiles. Let's retreat, Yun Jian said to Shuiying, who was on the other end of Siyi's phone. Yes. Shuiying agreed to Yun Jian faster than he agreed to Siyi. As soon as he finished, he hung up on Siyi. How dare Shuiying hang up on Siyi when the young mistress had spoken? In the past, Shuiying would not have dared to do this even if he was given 100 guts. Chapter 1398. Yun Jian made it clear. She would not stop them if they wanted to tag along. She did not have the right to stop them. After all, they were her legs. However, Yun Jian was not responsible for their safety. They had never experienced how dangerous the Amazon forest was. However, Yun Jian, who had survived in the Amazon forest for 6 months in her previous life, knew that it was not a place for humans. Even Yun Jian barely survived in the Amazon forest. It did not matter if it was the wild animals or the swamp that they encountered during their military training on the uninhabited island. The Amazon forest could not be compared to the small waves on the uninhabited island. What do you mean by that? F***ck, Don't make it sound like the earth would stop spinning without you, alright? Seriously. There are more and more people who think highly of themselves. They don't even know what they're thinking. Lung Lingling was taken aback by Yun Jian's reprimand. She was stunned for a moment before she spoke up after recovering from the shock. After saying that, Lung Lingling turned her head to look at Guo Xiao, whom she admired. Brother Xiao, am I right? Before Lung Lingling could hear Guo Xiao's reply, Lung Hanja yelled at Lung Lingling again, Lung Lingling. If you continue to mess around, you can go home right now. This was the second time Lung Hanja, as Lung Lingling's brother, had spoken to her in such a loud tone. Lung Lingling was furious. Let's go. Yun Jian ignored Lung Lingling. She spoke to Mu Ying and left first. Lung Hanja, Lung Lingling, and the rest followed Yun Jian and Mu Ying from the car to the plane to Country G. In other words, Lung Hanja and Lung Lingling did not know the way and followed Yun Jian. The Amazon forest was also known as the Amazon rainforest. It was located in the Amazon basin in South America. The rainforest spanned across 8 countries and took up 20% of the world's forest area. It was the largest rainforest in the world with the most species. Yun Jian would usually depart from Country G when she went to the Amazon forest, because Country G had helicopters that could directly reach the entrance of the Amazon forest. The other 8 countries were all around the Amazon forest, but Yun Jian was more used to setting off from Country G. Lung Hanja and the others followed them all the way until they arrived at the place where they took the helicopter to the Amazon forest in Country G. Public security in Country G was generally good, but there was no lack of places with poor public security. The helicopter that goes directly to the Amazon forest is rented from the local people, and the number of helicopters here is relatively small, so usually there is a queue for a helicopter. At this moment, Yun Jian and Mu Ying were waiting in line, followed by Lung Hanja and a group of people. It's so hot. It's almost our turn. Is the plane here yet? Lung Lingling fanned her face and asked lazily. Bear with it. It's coming, it's coming. They're finally here. A guy in the same group responded. They saw a helicopter being pulled over by a large truck from afar. Hey, you guys wait for 2 more hours. The pilot of this helicopter got into an argument with armed people and was shot twice. He's been sent to the hospital, and the next helicopter will arrive in 2 more hours. Just then a staff member walked over and waved at Yun Jian and the others, speaking in Chinese. The staff member was from Country Z. Huh? 2 more hours? Lung Lingling was dumbfounded when she heard that. Is this helicopter empty? No one's piloting it? Yun Jian asked. Hearing Yun Jian's words, the staff member paused for a moment, then smiled naturally, yes. Then the staff member joked with Yun Jian, Little girl, do you want to drive the helicopter to the Amazon forest yourself? Was impossible. The staff member didn't finish his sentence. Give me the helicopter, I'll rent it. Yun Jian took out a card from her pocket and threw it to the staff member, then walked towards the helicopter. What's wrong with you? The pilot isn't here and you still want to rent the helicopter. Do you even know how to drive it? Lung Lingling, who was standing behind, couldn't help but scold Yun Jian. Hey little girl. You can't just drive the helicopter if you don't know how to drive it. Also, do you know the coordinates of the Amazon forest? The staff member reacted and wanted to chase after Yun Jian, who had already walked to the helicopter. However, he saw Yun Jian walk to the side of the helicopter and jump onto the helicopter door. Under the gaze of the surrounding people, she walked to the cockpit and started the helicopter within 3 seconds. The helicopter instantly flapped its wings and floated up, making a loud noise. Yun Jian walked to the helicopter door under everyone's horrified gaze and put down the rope. She called out to Mu Ying, come up. She really knew how to drive a helicopter. This teenage girl really knew how to drive a helicopter. Chapter 1400. We're not going with a group. Yun Jian immediately denied the guy's words. She didn't even look at the guy's face before she spoke. Hearing Yun Jian's simple words, the guy was stunned, but he didn't give up. Instead, he walked to Yun Jian and Mu Ying. Then he looked at Yun Jian and Mu Ying. The guy spoke again as if he was trying to persuade Yun Jian and Mu Ying to agree with him. It's not good for the two of you to enter the Amazon forest by yourselves. The Amazon forest isn't an ordinary forest. There are ferocious beasts inside. You might get into trouble if you go by yourselves. I heard that a group of people went in 2 days ago and they haven't come out yet. It's dangerous for the two of you to enter the Amazon forest without a group. Why don't you come with us? You can take care of each other. Also, we're all from Country Z. It's rare to meet people from the same country here. The guy said a lot of things, but all he got was Yun Jian's rejection. I'm not going. Renzongwei, can you do it? You can't even persuade two girls. You don't even have that bit of charm. What are you doing? Another guy's voice came from the side. The other guy said as he walked towards Yun Jian and Mu Ying. Ladies, I'm Dan Qingjie. We're planning to enter the Amazon forest as a group. Ren Zongwei told you guys just now that we're short of 3 people. There are 6 of our country's compatriots in the group. Do you guys want to come along? The guy who called himself Dan Qingjie was a handsome young guy. He was about 19 years old and looked very bright and handsome. It was not hard to tell that Dan Qingjie and his group were university students who came to the Amazon forest to play. Also, one could tell that Dan Qingjie and his group were wearing branded clothes from head to toe. Even the watches on their hands were worth more than 5,000. 5,000 was considered extremely expensive in terms of the price of watches in 1999. Just by looking at Dan Qingjie's group, it was not hard to tell that they were all university students. Usually, if a university student could come to a place like the Amazon forest to play, they would need to have a rich family to do so. But these were not in Yun Jian's consideration. After Dan Qingjie told Ren Zongwei that Yun Jian and Mu Ying were going to the Amazon alone and that it was quite dangerous, Yun Jian started to pack her bag. She ignored Dan Qingjie and took out a butterfly knife, 2 daggers and many blades from her bag. After making sure that these things could be used normally, she put them in her bag. Ren Zongwei and Dan Qingjie were just talking about Yun Jian and Mu Ying going into the Amazon forest by themselves. It was very dangerous for the 2 girls, so they advised them to team up with them. However, when they saw Yun Jian take out a few knives from her bag, Ren Zongwei and Dan Qingjie both took a deep breath and swallowed their saliva. You're a girl. There were fish swimming in the river, so a few foreigners had already rolled up their sleeves excitedly, took off their shoes and entered the water to catch fish. Let's go and have some fun too. Lu Yun was very excited as she took off her shoes and ran into the river. She stepped on the shallow sand in the river and made a yay expression to one of the guys who brought a camera. The river was very wide and the current was relatively fast. Lu Yun stood in the river and made a pose for the guy with the camera to take pictures of her. With this careless step, Lu Yun's foot was suddenly scratched by a stone. Just as she was about to raise her foot to see what was going on, she heard Yun Jian's voice from afar. There are piranhas in this river, you have to go ashore immediately. Yun Jian's words made Lu Yun frown, but Lu Yun was the kind of girl who would not show her displeasure on the surface. To put it bluntly, she cared a lot about her image. Even if she really did not like someone, Lu Yun would not show it on her face. Instead, she would treat people coldly. Yun Jian spoke in English, so everyone present heard it clearly. Where are the piranhas? I still want to take pictures. Lu Yun frowned and her voice became cold. However, she did not say anything to Yun Jian that showed her displeasure. A few of the foreigners around heard Yun Jian's words and went ashore. Although Lu Yun did not talk back to Yun Jian loudly, she was very indifferent to Yun Jian. When the foreigners heard Yun Jian's words just now, they were also skeptical. Because even the tour guide said that piranhas should not appear in this place, but they did not rule out the possibility. However, at this moment, Lu Yun suddenly screamed, "Ah!" In the next second, everyone saw a fish that was about 30 centimeters long open its mouth and use its sharp teeth to grab Lu Yun's leg. It was like a surgeon's scalpel crazily biting and cutting. After biting the flesh on Lu Yun's leg, it did not let go. With its body twisting, it actually bit off a piece of flesh on Lu Yun's leg in front of everyone. Chapter 1402. Any smell of blood will trigger a large group of piranhas to attack violently. You still have 3 seconds to go ashore. After 3 seconds, even the gods won't be able to save you. Yun Jian said calmly as she looked at Lu Yun's leg that was bitten off by the piranhas. Piranhas usually attacked in groups. There was once a child who accidentally fell into a pond where piranhas were rearing. Within a few minutes, he was gnawed alive and turned into a horrifying skeleton. This was not nonsense. It was an ironclad fact. No. Lu Yun, who was bitten on her leg, was so scared that she didn't even care about the pain on her leg. She immediately jumped ashore. This piranha that bit her leg didn't want to let go. In the end, Lu Yun desperately shook her leg a few times before it let go. Lu Yun herself didn't see it. The second after she jumped ashore, everyone on the shore saw the piranhas behind her as if they were injected with chicken blood. They rushed towards her without any regard for their lives. Some of them even bit Lu Yun's skirt. They directly bit Lu Yun's skirt. Will they come ashore? Someone was so scared that he screamed and wanted to run away. It hurts. Lu Yun also sat on the ground and couldn't move. Waves of pain came from her leg. A piece of the flesh on her leg that was bitten by the piranhas had already fallen off. Just looking at it was terrifying, let alone actually experiencing it. Am I going to die? Lu Yun hugged her legs and started wailing. Everyone shut up. Just as the people on the scene were extremely noisy, each and every one of them was scared out of their wits. Some of them even wanted to go back the way they came and didn't want to continue this trip. Yun Jian yelled at everyone to stop. Even Lu Yun was trying her best to endure the pain. She was so scared that she quieted down. Just now it was Yun Jian who said that there were piranhas in the river. Moreover, Yun Jian said that, but the group of people around didn't believe her. Yun Jian, how did you know that there's food in the river, piranhas? Dan Qingjie was so scared that he started to stutter. Yun Jian did not answer Dan Qingjie's question directly. She glanced at everyone around them and spoke in English that everyone present could understand coldly. I'm sorry, but I'm sorry. If you want to survive in the Amazon forest, remember 3 things. Don't touch anything, don't run around, and don't move around. If you can't even do these 3 things, then I can tell you very clearly that you only have 2 choices now. Leave this place or die. Yun Jian's gaze was as sharp as a knife. Every word that came out of her mouth was shocking. Even the tour guide who was leading the way was intimidated by Yun Jian's icy demeanor. Didn't you say that with someone guiding you, it's very safe to play in the Amazon forest? A burly man stepped forward and asked. Chapter 1403. The meaning of Yun Jian's words was that she would not team up with trash. The trash she referred to everyone present. In other words, although she had joined this tour group, she would not team up with anyone in the tour group. To put it bluntly, if the people present wanted to live, they had to do it themselves. Otherwise, even if someone died in front of her, she would not do it again. How can you be like this? Everyone came in with the tour group. How can you do something like watching someone die? Are you Z people all so uneducated? A blonde foreign woman pointed at Yun Jian in fluent English because she was afraid. As soon as the blonde foreign woman's voice fell, Yun Jian cast a sidelong glance at her. Her eyes emitted a sharp and eye-catching luster, coupled with the skill Yun Jian had just shown in front of everyone. The blonde foreign woman trembled and took a few steps back. Just when the blonde foreign woman was frightened by Yun Jian's frightening eyes and took a big step back, Yun Jian suddenly took a step forward. She stretched out her white slender hand and grabbed the blonde foreign woman's collar. She actually dragged the blonde foreign woman's figure to the spacious river where the piranhas gathered. The blonde foreign woman was directly suppressed by Yun Jian in 3 seconds. As long as Yun Jian gently let go, the blonde foreign woman would fall into the river and become a meal for the piranhas. The blonde foreign woman immediately realized that her collar was being pulled by Yun Jian. Her body was tilted. As long as Yun Jian let go, she would become a meal for the piranhas below. Just now, Lu Yun was bitten by a piranha and a piece of meat was bitten off. Now there are hundreds of piranhas in the river. If Yun Jian let go, let me go, the blonde foreign woman was scared. She began to struggle to escape from Yun Jian's grasp. However, Yun Jian's strength was so great that the blonde foreign woman had no room to break free. For the first time, the blonde foreign woman felt terrified and regretted what she had just said. At this time, Yun Jian's soft words reached the blonde foreign woman's ears. At the same time, everyone present was shocked. So you can choose not to listen to me. Don't worry, I'll let you experience what it's like to be uneducated. With that, Yun Jian loosened her grip. The blonde foreign woman was suppressed by Yun Jian, and the back of her head and back faced the hundreds of piranhas in the river. The blonde foreign woman could not loosen her grip on Yun Jian. If Yun Jian were to loosen her grip, the blonde foreign woman would end up in the mouths of the thousands of piranhas. This made the blonde foreign woman feel as if her scalp was numb and she was frightened. Yun Jian suddenly said this. Before the blonde foreign woman could react, Yun Jian had already let go of her hand. The blonde foreign woman immediately fell into the river with her back facing downwards. I don't want to die. At the same time, the blonde foreign woman screamed. She was scared out of her wits and didn't even know how to react. Just when the blonde foreign woman fell 10 centimeters into the river, Yun Jian suddenly reached out and grabbed the blonde foreign woman's collar again, preventing her from falling into the river. The piranhas in the river began to leap and jump, wanting to hunt the blonde foreign woman, a huge delicacy. Some of the fish even bit the blonde foreign woman's loose trousers and tore off her trousers and clothes in a few bites. Everyone present was frightened. They couldn't imagine how miserable the blonde foreign woman's fate would be if Yun Jian loosened her grip. At this time, Yun Jian's faint voice sounded in a trance. She sneered and said to the blonde foreign woman, I can kill people easily. What's the point of not saving a life? As soon as these words came out, coupled with Yun Jian's actions at the moment, the surrounding people were horrified. She really dared. Chapter 1404. Yun Jian's words stimulated the hearts of everyone present, especially Rin Zhongwei and Dan Qingjie, who invited Yun Jian to join their group. Rin Zhongwei and Dan Qingjie both thought that Yun Jian was just an ordinary girl, so when Yun Jian and Muing wanted to go to the Amazon forest alone, they came to invite them. That was because Yun Jian and Muing were two girls, and under the circumstances where it was dangerous for them to go alone, the possibility of them joining the group was higher. Later on, Yun Jian and Muing really joined their tour group, which made Rin Zhongwei and Dan Qingjie even more certain that Yun Jian and Muing were just weak girls. But Yun Jian's performance just now was not weak at all. That strange skill, that amazing observation. If it wasn't for Yun Jian, whether it was Lu Yun or the foreign man, they would not be able to escape death. Just when the blonde foreign woman was scared out of her wits, Yun Jian directly pulled her up from the river, and then stretched out her leg to kick the blonde foreign woman away. The blonde foreign woman was already scared out of her wits. After being thrown to the ground by Yun Jian, the foreigners who were with her immediately came forward to help her up. Yun Jian turned around after she scared the blonde foreign woman. She walked over and picked up the blades that she had spread out on the ground. A piece of flesh on Lu Yun's leg was bitten off by the piranhas. Among the few people in the tour group there was a medical staff. This medical staff anesthetized Lu Yun's leg, and Lu Yun temporarily did not feel pain. Yun Jian picked up the blades on the ground one by one, and then in front of everyone, hid the blades one by one in every corner of her body. These blades were hidden by Yun Jian in her hair, clothes, and everywhere she hid, the blades completely disappeared without a trace. Yun Jian, on the other hand, was the same as when she first arrived. There was no trace of a hidden weapon on her. Yun Jian simply threw away her bag and then hid the butterfly knife, 2 daggers, and the blades in the bag to her side. This bag was not given to her by Qin Yiru, so Yun Jian did not feel the slightest bit of reluctance to throw away this bag. Who the hell are you? How can you hide weapons on your body without anyone noticing? Dan Qingjie was very surprised. He saw Yun Jian hide so many weapons on her body. But strangely, after Yun Jian hid so many blades and weapons on her body, it was as if these things were not hidden by her at all, and no one could see any traces of hidden weapons on her body. After being reminded by Dan Qingjie, the surrounding people all realized this point and were a little surprised. Just as Yun Jian was about to hide the last 3 blades on her body, He Liqing suddenly reached out and took the 3 blades from Yun Jian's hands. Then He Liqing stood up and looked at Yun Jian with a hint of determination in her eyes. She said, "Yun Jian, I've decided I'm not going to be a useless person. I'll walk out of the Amazon forest with my own strength. This trip will not be in vain." He Liqing was a very mature woman. From the beginning Yun Jian felt that she was like a big sister. Yun Jian had a good impression of He Liqing. He Liqing's words made Yun Jian squint her eyes. She was obviously satisfied with He Liqing's performance. But with He Liqing taking the lead, the 20 people around them were still indifferent. Walking out of the Amazon forest with her own strength, This sentence was easy to say, but if one really chose to do it, normal people would not have the courage to do so. Not long after He Liqing said this, there was another group of people's voices coming from the entrance of the Amazon forest. Obviously, the people following the group were not only Yun Jian's group. Maybe because Yun Jian's group had delayed for a long time, the people following the group had caught up. In spite of it, both Yun Jian and Mu Ying frowned when they saw who was leading the group of people who had followed the group. The people leading the group were Lung Hanja, Lung Lingling, and Guo Xiao. Mu Ying did not expect Lung Hanja to really follow her. Yun Jian, on the other hand, raised a brow in disdain. They had actually stalled here for so long. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.